And good evening, everyone. We are going to now call tonight's meeting to order. It is now 6:30. Welcome to our meeting. Madam Clerk, can you take roll? I'm sorry, let's stand for flag salute. Right? Ready, begin. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Here.
Councilmember Perez,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Here.
and Mayor McQueen LaJean.
Here. We'll now move to the inspiration given by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. So this was, gave us a lot of thought over the weekend, and, Port Hueneme, we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety within our community, and, you can kind of feel it just walking around. And so to me, I thought it was important to talk to it. So to the people of Port Hueneme, in these uncertain times with fear echoes in our neighborhoods and the shadows of mass deportation grow stronger, I want to speak directly to it, to our families, our workers, our students, our elders, to every neighbor who calls Port Hueneme home. Our story, like others in this nation, is built upon those who came to seek a better life. For the original Chumash Indians who cared for this land, to Thomas Bard who saw opportunity in a coastal town. Port Hueneme has always been a place where hope takes root. We are dock workers, teachers, scientists, entrepreneurs, engineers, farm laborers, students chasing dreams. We are mothers, fathers, daughters, sons. We may come from different places, but here we are united by the promise of opportunity and the pursuit of dignity. This nation, at its very heart, is a nation of immigrants. Each generation brought you with not just its labor, but its love, not just its dreams, but its determination. This legacy lives not just in history books, but in the pulse of our city, in the laughter at our beaches, the fun at our parks, the voices at the port, in the spirit of our local businesses and the community we are shaping. To everyone here at Port Hueneme feeling afraid or uncertain, you belong. Your story, your presence, your contributions is not only valued, it's vital. Now is the time for us to come together. In the face of fear, let us choose courage. In the face of division, let us choose unity. And in the face of injustice, let us speak up, not just for each other, but for the values that define us. Human dignity, compassion, justice, these are not just words, they are commitments. And now more than ever, they must guide us. Let us move forward, not apart. Let us lead not with anger, but with love. And let Port Hueneme stand as the light in the darkness, a city that chooses humanity over hate and hope over fear. And let us live up to our motto, the friendly city by the sea. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Now we're going to move on to public comments. These are public comments not pertaining to an agenda item. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do we have public comments?
Yes, we have a few public comments. First will be Joan Tharp, followed by Greg Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for those words. City Council, Mayor Pro Tem, and staff and public, I'm here representing Ventura Surfrider, and I just wanted to let everybody know, you should have gotten your invitations today, that we are doing our kickoff for our restoration program out at the Hueneme Beach Park in 2.5 acres of dunes on June 28th. I hope that you can all make it, spread the word, everybody's invited, public, all the staff. I'd love to have as many people out there as possible. We're going to do that from 9 to 11. We'll meet up around the memorial area, parking lot B, And we're going to do a brief welcome, have some coffee and pastries, do an explanation of what we're planning to do with the restoration and why it's important. We'll do a little tour if anybody wants to wander around in the sand, so wear your appropriate shoes. And then for anybody that wants to get their hands dirty, we're going to do about an hour of pulling invasive species. I also just want to thank the city staff, particularly, I just want to do a shout out to Public Works. Everybody has been so helpful in supporting Surfrider in all of our programs and campaigns, from the Hold On To Your Breath program to Blue Water Task Force, our cleanups. We're going to be putting up some more ash cans in the new Bubbling Springs Park. Did a walkthrough the other day, and we're going to put those up in the next month or so. And also in May, we did a cleanup of 70 people showed up. It was amazing. Pulled about 270 pounds of trash out of Bubbling Springs Park, and this is a brand new park, so it was a little daunting that we've got so much trash out of there. But I did have my volunteers complaining that there wasn't enough trash. They're used to pulling thousands of pounds off the beach, so, you know, go figure. But anyway, I just wanted to, again, announce the kickoff. And then we're going to be doing a restoration project on the first Saturday of every month, starting with the dirtiest beach day of the year, which is July 5th. We're going to combine that with a cleanup at Hueneme Beach, and I'm sure that there will be other people out there doing cleanup too. So if you can come out whenever you can, we'd love that. And again, thank you so much, City of Port Hueneme. This is a great place to live and work and volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Lejeune, Mayor Pro Tem. I loved it was a great speech. Now I know why you got elected. And council members, thank you for listening. I've lived in Ventura County since 1970, Port Hueneme since the early 2000s. And again, we love this city. I attended the coffee with the city and was amazed to see James Vega and Jess Lopez, and Mayor Lejeune, Mr. Gama, thank you for coming, and thank you for listening. There aren't too many cities that do that, and especially when I say, hey, what about this? And I get an email this morning from Mr. Vega, and it's like, wow, somebody got back to me. This is great. This wouldn't happen anywhere else. So again, my hat's off to you. I set in front of you, I hope you have this, a little sheet about the port. This is my sort of my mantra, if you will. The port, I'll remind you, is the closest cargo port on the West Coast to residential area, especially high-density residential area. So what we have to put up with as a city or neighbors are noise, pollution, trucks, et cetera. And I want to remind you that we're on the other side of the westerly winds from Carpinteria to Malibu. So the winds are blowing the noise, the pollution, et cetera, towards us. So my 4 points here are pretty easy. You can read them yourself. I won't go into it any too major detail. But the truckers, I've asked the Harbor Commission District to post a sign for the truckers to lay off their horns as much as they can. And that sign didn't get put up. So the commissioners, they nod, and sometimes they get off their phone to look at me, but they don't react. So that's not right. That's not being a good neighbor. The ships are leaving the port and they're violating our city ordinance about noise. So this morning, very morning, 5:55 a.m., ships leaving the harbor, boom, big, loud, long horn from the ship. Can't that ship leave at 7 o'clock? Well, that's the city ordinance for noise. Nope, I guess not. Anyway, you can read this, please do. We've got pollution coming our way, smells, fuel leaks, et cetera, and they're not responding. They just don't respond. So I thank you for listening.
Austin Yang, and then followed by Brooke Balthasar.
Good evening, Mayor Makinozan, Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, member of the council, Mr. Vega and city staff, and citizens of this beautiful city. My name is Austin Yang. I'm Chief Financial Officer at the Port of Hueneme. I brought my statement here, so I hate what age does to your eyes, right? So the port and the city has shared long-standing and productive working relationship, and the Port City Standing Committee has played a vital role in fostering that collaboration. The Port City Standing Committee was established way before 2015. We have meeting minutes from as early as 2009. In 2015, as a part of settlement between the port and the city, both parties mutually agreed to use the Port City Standing Committee as a venue for discussion related to the, related to Community Benefit Fund. The CBF is one example of many important topics that can be addressed through this joint committee. Any issue related to the port and the city can be initially brought to the Port City Standing Committee for thoughtful discussion. From there, committee members may bring those issues back to their respective governing bodies for further consideration and action. We believe the Port City Standing Committee remains a valuable platform where the city and the port can bring forward creative, innovative, and collaborative ideas that benefit not only our respective agencies, but also the broader community we serve. Thank you again for opportunity tonight to speak, and we look forward to continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? Was that related to item 18?
I don't know. I was thinking that as well, but that's okay. He's already given the comment.
Yeah, but so we could discuss the comment later, but not now?
Yes, let's do that later.
Yeah, I would suggest it's close enough to that item that we should discuss it at that time.
Thank you.
Ben, you'll be after Brooke.
Okay, good evening, Port Hueneme City Council. My name is Brooke, and I'm the Community Organizing Manager at a local nonprofit called Climate First, Replacing Oil and Gas, or CFROG. I am also a neighboring resident living in South Oxnard, and I'm here today to ask you to take action to protect Port Hueneme and its residents from the affordability and climate crises that we're seeing unfold today. I am respectfully asking you to direct city staff to draft a resolution in support of the California Polluter Pays Climate Superfund Act, or AB 1243 and SB 684. This is a critical piece of legislation that would hold polluters accountable to the damages they have caused, while also protecting taxpayers and our state and local budgets from shouldering the billion-dollar cleanup costs for climate-related disasters. Californians and Port Hueneme residents are facing an affordability crisis. From increased insurance costs to higher costs of living to the costs on our health and safety, Californians have paid enough. At the same time, we're seeing federal funding cuts to FEMA and the stripping of environmental protections. And beyond this, Californians are facing a $12 billion budget deficit, resulting in funding cuts to essential programs and services that Port Hueneme residents likely rely on. With climate-related disasters projected to increase in frequency and severity, we desperately need another source of state funding that does not rely on taxpayers, which is why the Polluter Pays Climate Superfund Act is so important. This bill is modeled on other successful Superfund acts, such as CERCLA and the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Act, and it would direct Cal EPA to identify the fossil fuel companies that have emitted the largest levels of pollution in our state from 1990 to 2024. The companies would then be assigned a fee proportional to those emissions, which would be less than 1% of their trillion-dollar profits and can be paid over a 20-year period, so it's not a big financial hardship. The fees collected would go into a superfund, and that funding would go directly towards efforts such as climate mitigation and adaptation, grid resiliency and infrastructure, green jobs, resilient schools, and so much more. At least 40% of the funding will go to disadvantaged communities and those hit hardest by climate disasters and pollution. As a coastal community in the fastest warming county in the lower United States and overly burdened by industry pollution, Port Hueneme would more than likely benefit from the passage of this bill. We'd see much needed funding being brought to our communities to address issues such as sea level rise, electrifying port infrastructure, grid reliability and resilience, first responder and community preparedness, workforce development, and so much more. That is why I'm asking you to direct city staff to draft a resolution in support of the California Polluter Pays Climate Superfund Act. Many other cities across the state have passed similar resolutions, and I would be happy to follow up and share those with staff in case it's helpful. Please help us protect taxpayers and hold polluters accountable. It is time we put people before profit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for your words at the beginning of the meeting. I know many of us in this room agree with you wholeheartedly. I'll be issuing a statement similar to Brooke. My name is Ben Mullick, and I live in the condominium complex of Anacapa View, right off Ventura Road here in Port Hueneme. I'm here today to ask the Port Hueneme City Council to draft a resolution in support of the Polluters Pay Bill, SB 684, currently making its way through the California State Legislature. This bill would establish a climate superfund administered by Cal EPA by placing fines on the major fossil fuel companies, thereby holding them financially responsible for environmental damages in California. Port Hueneme has long been a city that has faced environmental degradation, from our fragile coastlines to our diminished air quality. Our city is also under budgetary strain due to rising insurance costs and the need for continual sand dredging around Hueneme Beach. The establishment of a superfund through the Polluters Pay Bill would open up new sources of revenue for our city and would also provide the necessary funds to protect the communities most in danger from our changing climate. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, and then we have a few written public comments. Dear Hueneme City Council members, I urge you to pass a resolution in support of the Polluters Pay Climate Superfund Bill. The funds from a tax on big oil companies would help our state invest in climate change resilience. The money could also be used to help homeowners invest in ways to protect their homes from future wildfires. It's obvious that climate change is here to stay, and we need the resources to deal with it. The Polluters Pay Bill will provide those resources while holding big oil accountable for misleading the public about climate change. Thank you for your time and consideration. Kristen Kessler. Hello, I'm with the Ventura County Climate Alliance and a resident of a neighboring coastal community, and I am writing to urge the city staff to draft a resolution in support of the California Polluters Pay Climate Superfund Act, AB 1243, SB 684. With increasing natural disasters impacting our communities and cuts to FEMA and other federal support, it is more important now than ever to fund natural disaster relief, climate resilience, and a transition to clean energy. This legislation will do just that by charging the largest fossil fuel companies less than 0.1% of their profits to pay for the damages they have knowingly caused through their greenhouse gas emissions. California taxpayers have paid enough and continue to do so through rising costs of living. It is time to hold polluters accountable. Port Hueneme and the rest of California deserve support to address concerns such as sea level rise, energy, grid reliability, green jobs, climate resilient schools, and more. I'm once again asking the city of Port Hueneme to draft a resolution to support the passage of the Climate Superfund Act, AB 1243, SB 684. Sincerely, Lauren Leland. Dear Port Hueneme City Council, those of us who live in Port Hueneme, along with all Californians, must contend with two unprecedented crises: the crisis of growing climate devastation and the crisis of affordability. Each of these intertwined crises has significantly stressed our state and local budgets, and each threatens to erode our quality of life beyond recognition. There is now a state bill going through committees that would, in a fair, legal, and practical way, address both of these crises. The Polluters Pay Climate Superfund Act, AB 1243, SB 684, has enormous grassroots support as well as that of many elected state and local leaders. Supporters also include labor groups, environmental champions, business owners, doctors, nurses, among others. Hearing from you would encourage state legislators to support the bill. Will you direct staff to prepare a resolution indicating your support? Anyone who reads the bill and takes the time to understand its implications will agree that not only does it make sense, it is also the right thing to do from a moral perspective. Why? Because it shifts the burden of paying for disaster repair, recovery, and prevention from those least able to pay for it to those who have profited for years while paying nothing for the damage their products have caused, even enjoying subsidies at the same time. This is about paying their fair share. The bill would direct Cal EPA to conduct a climate cost study and use climate attribution science to identify and assess a proportional fee from the fossil fuel companies with the most GHG emissions from 1990 through 2024. The fee would be paid into a super fund. The funding will go directly to rebuilding, climate mitigation, and resiliency efforts, frontline communities, green workforce development, and more. Additionally, 40% of the funding will be allocated to these efforts within disadvantaged communities. Please use your influence to pass this legislation. State legislators care what you think. With your support, this bill can help us meet these two crises ahead on, addressing impacts which we are now feeling on a daily basis in Port Hueneme and the rest of the world. Respectfully, Kathleen Willer. Dear Port Hueneme City Council, I would like to alert the City Council of two California legislative bills called Polluters Pay Climate Superfund, SB 684, AB 1243, that would establish a fund to help communities most affected by the climate crisis. This fund would come from the biggest polluters who currently pay nothing for the cost of doing business, while taxpayers, families, and small businesses and municipalities pay for the cost of climate damages and health harms. We have all paid enough. Your city would benefit from the Superfund and could help pay for the regular dredging required to keep the city from flooding and the difficulty getting the funds to keep the city and its residents safe. To date, there are 80 elected officials plus more than 200 nonprofits and more than 100,000 signatures of residents in support of the bills. Similar bills have been passed in VT and Vermont and New York. Please direct your staff to direct a resolution in support of the polluter pays bills. Thank you, Francis Lee, concerned citizen of Ventura County. A moment of thanks. Last Wednesday, June 11th, the city sponsored a coffee with the city where various city representatives met at a local coffee shop and interacted with many city residents during the course of 1 hour. This excellent city offering has been one of great value to citizens as we are given the opportunity outside of a structured council meeting or an appointment to meet with and seek information from many departments at one time. At this last meeting, the city manager, police chief, deputy city manager, public works director, mayor, some council members, and various other staff engaged with public addressing questions and also learning of our concerns. It was also a great opportunity to meet our newest council member and Mayor Pro Tem, Jess Lopez. The only thing that could have made this event even better was if Officer Giorgio had made a cameo appearance. There were a few K-9 residents present that you could tell were looking forward to meeting and welcoming a local hero. At the end, we all came away better informed and more confident that the city was truly listening to us. Our city is small and our staff wears many hats, but all share a commitment to public service and making a difference for our city. I hope this annual meeting tradition continues, and for that reason, I took the time to share how much it is appreciated. Thank you for taking time to take the pulse of the city. Kindly, Juliet. And that concludes the general public comments.
Mayor, if I could just note, so because we received several comments about the polluters pay bill, and requests to create a resolution related to that, I know the council knows this, but I'll say it more for the people that commented, is we are not able to discuss or pass that resolution tonight because it's not on the agenda. But at the end of the meeting, if it's desired, council could request it as a future agenda item. So thank you.
Great. I just want to thank everyone for your public comments. We'll now move on to the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve?
Second.
Great. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the council that have a conflict of interest with any items on the agenda? If not, we'll move on. We'll move on to our first presentation, which is a centenarian proclamation honoring Ms. Helen Brandt, and that's going to be read by Councilmember Perez. And while she's doing that, you all can come up to the mic, whoever would like to stand, at least Ms. Brandt. But whoever else wants to join her can at the podium.
Proclamation honoring and celebrating Helen June Brandt in recognition of her 100th birthday. Whereas Helen June Brandt was born on June 20th, 1925, the daughter of Port Hueneme pioneers Bernard and Marie Arostegui. Aristegi. Proprietors of the Aristegi Market, founded in 1924 at Market and Loudon Streets, a cornerstone of early civic life in our community. And whereas Helen spent the first 93 years of her life in Port Hueneme from 1925 to 2018, eventually operating the family store with her husband, Robert Bob Brandt, from 1950 to 1957, demonstrating steadfast commitment to local enterprise and service. And whereas Helen and Robert Brandt made their family home at 602 North Ventura Road, raising 5 children and deeply embedding themselves in the fabric of Port Hueneme through dedicated community involvement and volunteerism. And whereas Helen significantly contributed to Port Hueneme's cultural and civic life through extensive volunteer work, including the Hueneme Elementary PTA, Hueneme Girl Scouts, as co-founder of the Hueneme Harbor Day Festival, supporting food share fundraisers, involvement with Hueneme Rotary Anns, and critical efforts in preserving local heritage through the Hueneme Historical Society. Port Hueneme Historical Society. And whereas Helen Brandt has been recognized for her exceptional community service, receiving honors such as Port Hueneme Co-Citizen of the Year in 2005, the Hueneme Spirit Award in 2019, and the Friends of the Bard Mansion Certificate of Appreciation, reflecting her lasting impact on our community. And whereas Helen June Brandt's remarkable life and enduring contributions have significantly enriched the city of Port Hueneme, reflecting the highest ideals of community spirit, dedication, and public service. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of Port Hueneme hereby proudly honor and recognize Helen June Brandt on the joyful occasion of her 100th birthday, celebrating her extraordinary milestone and lifelong commitment to the betterment of our beloved community.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You know, I
Use the mic, yes, thank you.
what do you do with it?
Put it-
Anyway, I've lived here and loved every minute of it. I live in a community where there are many people. I have a huge family that keeps me busy, but the the only time I feel lonesome is when I come home to Hueneme. I appreciate all the nice things that everybody says, and I don't know how I got here. I have no answers to all the questions I'm given, but Hueneme is home. It always has been and always will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're gonna ask that you just don't sit down. Don't sit down yet. We're gonna get some pictures.
Oh,
Yeah, so in your entire family, come up and stand up here.
I don't know if there's enough room for my...
And you all can stand on both sides. Yeah.
One, two, three.
Helen.
And so, just one second. Is there you have some other folks with you? Are you all with the group? We're just old friends. Come on up. Come on up.
We like having pictures taken.
Come on, Jack.
Come on, Jack.
Daniel's got a job to do.
One, two, three.
Thank you. And while you are sitting, any words from council? Anyone have anything to say?
Sure. Miss Helen Brandt. Hello. I just want to say that every time I've interacted with you tonight as well, it's always been fun-filled, inspirational, and heartfelt for the city that we call home. We, all of us in the crowd that I see here, we all interact in different ways at the museum, at the beach, and you know, your memories and the store, and I've heard so many stories, and it's just awesome that you could be here with us tonight and that we can honor you, and really appreciate the fact that you call this place home.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? I'll just say it's just so nice getting to meet you. We met when Orvine Carpenter was having his what were they called, the special series over at the museum. Yeah, and your daughter was there with you. But so happy to have you here today. You know, not a lot of people get to be 100. And so really a blessing for your family to have you at 100. That's absolutely wonderful. So just God bless you all, and just make sure you have a lot of videos and a lot of pictures and a lot of things.
We have Daniel there.
Yes.
Your own photographer.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to move on then. Thank you so much again for being here.
Excuse us, we'll let you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you can go start the party now.
So we're now going to move on to the Juneteenth Celebration Day Proclamation. And yes, you can. Thank you. Thank you.
We're honored.
Yes. Thank you. So I'm going to read the proclamation. We have a couple of folks out there. You all come on up, Miss Loretta and Bruce. And I hit myself in the head. I forgot. Angela, yeah. Yeah, Ruby, I'm sorry. Ruby. Do I know you, Ruby? All right, I'm going to read the proclamation, but so glad to see you all here this evening. So this is the Juneteenth Celebration Day, June 21st, 2025. Whereas on January 3rd, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln legally and officially declared the end of slavery in the United States of America, and whereas led by Union soldiers, Major General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas to announce the Civil War had ended and the enslaved were free on June 19, 1865. And whereas the announcement stated that in accordance with the proclamation of the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves the absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and free laborer. And whereas it was the act that gave America its first national black holiday, a day set aside for this nation to celebrate freedom on June 19th. And whereas this day was the beginning of Juneteenth celebrations as former slaves celebrated their newly granted freedoms. And whereas on June 19th, 2025 will mark the 160th year of celebration. The state of Texas declared Juneteenth a state holiday in 1980, followed by Oklahoma, and it is celebrated all across the nation with the mission to promote and cultivate knowledge and appreciation to African American history and culture. And whereas the inaugural celebration of Juneteenth in Ventura County was June 17th, 1989. Were any of you there? I knew you would be. And was organized and sponsored by the Martin Luther King Jr. Committee of Ventura County. Does any of you guys belong to that committee? Yes. In Ventura County, in conjunction with Firefighters of Color United Stand, Focus, and the Black Student Union, BSU, of Oxnard College. And whereas on June 21st, this year's celebration is sponsored by the Juneteenth Committee of Ventura County, California, with the purpose of unite and raise awareness of our history. And whereas the city of Port Hueneme wishes to recognize the importance of the Juneteenth celebration and commend the organizers for their meaningful and educational public event, saluting this special occasion. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme does hereby proclaim June 21st, 2025 as Juneteenth Celebration Day in the city of Port Hueneme and encourages all residents to participate in the celebration sponsored by the Black American Political Association of California, Ventura County Chapter, at Oxnard Plaza Park. Proclaim this day, the 16th of June, 2025. And so we're going to take pictures, but do you all have anything you'd like to say?
Go ahead, Angela. Oh, okay. We always get Angela to do this, but this Saturday will be the 34th celebration, as you know, and Juneteenth is everything that the mayor has just said, and much, much more. And back in 1989, a group of us got together and decided that Oxnard needed to become a part of this, and we started then, and we haven't missed a beat. And it's been, we've been able to do it because of the city support from Port Hueneme, City of Oxnard, City of Ventura, and many, many corporate organizations and private churches, and it's just been a wonderful journey. And we really appreciate that you are recognizing us this year, as you did last year. I do believe I wasn't in town, but we thank you for your support and recognition. And this Saturday, it will be at Plaza Park. I brought a poster that you could post somewhere, and it's going to be from 10 to 5. We'll have music, we'll have food, we'll have arts and crafts, we'll have vendors, we'll have information, so please come out and join us.
Great, and it is a free event.
Right, and the Buffalo Soldiers from Riverside will be here. They've been with us for the past 6 or 7 years, and they come and they bring the women of the West and with them, and they tell their wonderful stories.
I'll come up, we're gonna take some pictures.
That's why you're in the middle.
Okay, I'm gonna take a couple. One, two, three. One, two, three.
And we're gonna now, move on to our third presentation. That's the Hueneme Beach Festival Community Invitation, and that's going to be by our city manager.
Yeah, and I'm going to hand it off to Frank Monalongo, who is helping to coordinate the event, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what to expect, because it is somehow almost time for Beach Fest.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. I am here today on behalf of, obviously, the City of Port Hueneme and the Police Explorers for this year's Hueneme Beach Festival. So the festival this year would take place on July 12th and 13th from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Once again, we'll be having free parking and free entrance for the entire community. The festival layout this year will consist of Ocean View Drive will be used as a main entrance walkway and feature a first aid tent, information booths, food and general retail stalls. Parking lot B will be used for our we'll be hosting our live entertainment, main stage, food court, and alcohol servicing area. Ocean View Drive and parking lot C will be where our carnival area, additional food vendors, arts and crafts, and a secondary alcohol serving area. The Hueneme Beach will be used on Saturday the 12th for a competitive beach soccer tournament. And on Surfside Drive, it will remain open, so there will be no impeding traffic. So the flow of traffic will continue just like last year with the open plan for the right-of-way. Here, as you'll see the layout for the festival, nothing's changed from last year. One big change, though, was the wrestling beach tournament that was supposed to happen this year that actually is going to be canceled. And the reason why is some of our local wrestlers made the national tournament in Fargo this year. So the coaches who host the nonprofit tournament will be with their wrestlers at the tournament this year. So they notified me today that they had qualifying wrestlers. So we had to postpone it hopefully till next year when they return. So for entertainment, on Saturday, we're going to start off once again with our high school marching band competition. We're going to have Chalmers High School, Hueneme High School, and Oxnard High School. And the Port Hueneme POA will be making a donation to each one of the organizations for coming out to our festival to perform. We're then going to continue with the Hero Award presentation. And following after that, we'll have the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is a Red Hot Chili Peppers cover band. I know the name. And then we're going to continue with Instone and then finish the evening with Corazon de Maná. And throughout the day, DJ Depeche Mode will be playing DJ music as a band transition for the festival. Then on Sunday, we're going to open the morning with Bruno and the Hooligans once again. We're then going to kick it off with the Kings of Queen, a Queen cover band, and then finish the afternoon with Banda La Venenosa and Los Halcones de Bajío will be playing in the evening, and DJ Depeche Mode will be playing throughout the festival as well. Then on Saturday for the beach soccer tournament, they'll be on the west side of the pier for their event on Saturday. They'll have 10 soccer fields. They estimate between 150 to 200 athletes competing in competitive soccer games, and they average about 400 to 500 spectators for this event. So our hope is with the festival going on and the tournament, we'll get those individuals will be able to come to our festival as they're waiting for their additional games to go on throughout the day. Then we have our youth poster contest once again. As you'll see, all the posters have been hung up for this year. We had over 200 entries. We have not selected a winner yet because some of the committee members were out of the office, so we're working on that. But the winners will receive a $350 prize sponsored by Lujan Transportation. We're going to have 2 elementary school winners, a junior high, and a high school winner. We plan on announcing the winners, presenting them with their award at the beach festival as well on Saturday this year. Then we have once again our Hang 10 Carnival Fun Zone. Pre-sale carnival tickets are on sale right now, $30 for 10 rides. I encourage the community to take advantage of the sale because it does save you quite a bit of money if you do the pre-sale for the rides. And the pre-sale will end on July 11th. You either can scan the QR code or go to the website, and the link is there where you can purchase your tickets. We also this year sent out resident mailers. I'm not sure if anybody's received them yet in their mail, but it should have been included in the water bill. So this is the exact mailer that went in. It has the outline with the information of the beach festival with the QR code to take you to the website. We also included the pre-sale tickets, and the Explorers ended up sponsoring this and covering the cost because we included our Join Today for the Port Hueneme Police Explorers so we could get the entire city of Hueneme residents information for the Explorer program. So we thought about it as a different way to be able to get our information out to get more recruits in. Currently, we have 7 attending our academy starting next week. They're actually prepping right now, so they'll be starting their police academy and graduating on July 12th from their Explorer Academy, hopefully. And then for our sponsors, so our goal, I just want to give recognition to our sponsors. For gold sponsors, we have Skunk Masters, Port of Hueneme, Darvik Productions, who will be handling our stage and audio this year, and Wallenist from the Port. Our silver sponsors were the Hyatt Vacation Club and E-Rentals. And then our bronze sponsors were Leona, Renewed by Anderson, Lowers College, Farm Fresh TU, Ventura County Coast, a new addition, the Liberty Military Housing Group. So they are actually going to get the information for the festival out to a lot of our military families and communities in the area outside of Hueneme and the neighboring cities. So that should be a big help as well. The Clean Power Alliance, and then Carnitos the Brother. Any questions? Yes.
Any questions? Councilmember Gama?
So I was really surprised to see that one piece of art in your. Were you promoting that one? Because that's kind of like the one I liked out of all these.
No,
ones.
I just took one random today when we were getting the PowerPoint. So again, there's a lot of great artwork. So we haven't decided. At the committee, we've been getting emails and a bunch of different. Everyone's submitting different posters that they like. So we just got to sit down and come to a consensus of who's going to win.
Okay, well, I think you know my favorite.
In other words, you have to wait until
Right.
Beach Fest to find out who the winner is. It's a cliffhanger.
Any other questions? I did have one question, and it follow up to his Councilmember Gama's question. Are you going to? You're not going to show any of the art? No posters
For the so once again, we're gonna, so all these artworks have been digitized already in JPEG files. We're gonna have them on banners once again, and they will be at the festival again this year. And then we'll contact the winners prior and then announce them at the festival as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? No other questions?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
The lineup sounds-
Perfect.
Thank
Hope
you
to see everybody there.
Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Excited.
All right. So next, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. We'll now consider items on the consent calendar. They'll be enacted in one motion unless a council member would like to pull an item.
I would like to pull item number 14, the annual Wainimi Hero Award, and give the council a chance to discuss that.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion for the remaining items?
Motion to approve items,
1 through 13?
yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Madam Clerk, can you have a roll call, please?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Great, and we'll go to item number 14.
And Madam Mayor,
sorry.
I'm sorry too, because I don't know if you're going to take public comment on that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
On this
You, yeah, we did have a public comment, and I usually read them during general, so I just wanted to make you aware.
So you read it already?
No, I have not.
Okay, got it.
But
got
we
it.
do have one.
So let's go ahead and, what questions did you?
Oh, okay. Do you want to do the public comment first, or?
Hello, I would like to share this letter for the Port Hueneme Lions Club for the Hero Award. Parkview thanks the Port Hueneme Lions Club. On behalf of the students, families, and staff of Parkview Elementary School, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Port Hueneme Lions Club for their incredible support and generosity. This valued partnership has been instrumental in bringing to life a vision that is deeply rooted in the mission and values of our school community. At Parkview Elementary, we believe our school is more than just a place of learning. It is a foundation of support, kindness, and care for every member of our community. Over the past year, our school counselor and administrative team have worked diligently to create a resource center that would provide tangible support for families in need. Through the Port Hueneme Lions Club generous fundraising efforts and donation of over $2,100, we are proud to announce the opening of the Mustang Kindness Closet. This dedicated space is designed to assist students and families facing challenges by offering access to essential items such as gently used clothing, shoes, personal hygiene products, blankets, food, and referrals to community services. The Port Hueneme Lions Club's contribution enabled us to purchase and install storage cabinets and organizational materials, allowing us to store and distribute resources in a clean, accessible, and dignified manner. Already, the Mustang Kindness Closet has made a difference in the lives of Parkview families. The generosity of the Port Hueneme Lions Club not only brought this vision to life, but also reinforced the values we strive to instill in our students: compassion, empathy, and community responsibility. It is an honor to share that Parkview was the first school to be selected by the Port Hueneme Lions Club for a fundraiser. We are truly grateful for this partnership and look forward to many more opportunities to work together in service of our students and community. Thank you again to the Port Hueneme Lions Club for your generosity and commitment to making a difference. Thank you, Sarahi Jimenez, Principal, Parkview Elementary School. And that concludes public comment.
Great, thank you. Now,
Okay.
your questions over
Thank you,
here.
Mayor. I just had a question. Is this the first year that we're approving 3 recipients? And if so, will we need to somehow include language for the future on the permission to do so, to do 3 versus, I mean, what if next year they want to do 4 or 5? I think we need to probably address that.
Yeah, and to answer the first question, yes, this is the first we've had 3. We did have 2 last year. I believe that was the first time we've ever had more than 1. That could be something that the city council could consider, is giving that direction that it be, a single person chosen. That is something that can be directed for future years. As of this moment, there is no rule on that in the program.
Yeah, so maybe in the future, they can do maybe 1 individual hero and then an organizational hero. I don't have any problem with 3, but I want to make sure that we're it's written into the nomination process.
Councilmember, I'm sorry. go ahead,
And
City
just
Manager.
to, so to do that, we would bring that criteria back. So that's something that we could do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Hernandez that, you know, it says Hero Award, and then last year we had two highly qualified, highly respected individuals, and we decided to honor them both. So I don't think and then to go to 3 this year is great that we have, because I mean, the Lions Club obviously deserving of it, the other 2 recipients as well. But maybe we do need to change our wording. Maybe we could change it to, you know, community leaders, or, because when I hear hero, I think of a first responder, fireman, you know, running into a burning building. So maybe we could address it that way and make an agenda request at the end of the meeting. But I think it's great if we have more than one person to honor, but I think we should reflect that in whatever policy we have, because we are the policymakers.
So I'll just say, I think I heard 2 things. I heard Councilmember Hernandez saying not minimize, but it's hero, so we should be thinking about it being hero. But then I heard you say, change the name to leaders, which means that's, so we can have multiple. So I think I heard 2 different things. But what I would like to say is that, yes, I'm okay with what we have this year. One of the things I did mention to the city manager is, you know, when you start giving out an award that we look at as being a prestigious award, and you give it out a lot, then it diminishes the real value of the award. So that's the kind of thing I'd like to just make sure we keep that in mind when we start issuing the award. Did you have something, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I just, the language, like, if there's no grading criteria within the language, or, because I'm not opposed to saying 3 people are not deserving, but, you know, the language needs to state that. So that's what I think we need, as a council, need to hammer that out.
Okay, yeah.
Sounds like there's a consensus to have a future item about the program. So I think we've heard from a majority that we can plan to do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll make a request at the end of the meeting.
Do we need to?
I think we can get the direction now. Yeah, so we're good.
Does anybody have anything else before we move forward with the approval? Nope. All right, can I get a motion and a
Motion
second?
to approve item 14.
Second.
Great, Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Great, we're going to move on to item number 15. That's the levy and collection of annual assessments for Assessment District 87-1, Assessment District 91-1, and Assessment District 95-3, an agreement with the Ventura County Auditor's Controller for billing of direct assessments. Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law and a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. Will staff please present the report?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, members of the audience. We're here for the second part of the assessment district approvals. At our last meeting, you preliminarily approved with resolutions the engineer's reports, the use of that money, the amounts. Tonight is the second portion of that, which is the actual ordering of the levy and collection of those assessments. As a quick reminder, the lighting district has a revenue expected of $132,000 with expenses of $188,000, which leaves approximately $56,000 subsidy that the general fund will have to cover. That is essentially our street lighting bills. So, as you know, the rates have continued to go up, and we have the option to raise these, but it would have to go through a 218 process. For the Parkway and Median, the revenue's $176,000 with expenses of $232,000. Again, a $56,000 difference, but our fund balance has the money to cover that. And with use of that, it's expected at the end of this fiscal year, the fund balance for that district would be $195,000. And then our drainage assessment has an expected revenue of 185 with expenses of 196,000, with $11,000 being covered from our fund balance, and the expected estimated fund balance at the end of 25-26 would be $629,000. And I briefly mentioned at the last meeting that we are working on some other things right now to see if we can get permits and other things for maintenance of the channel. So there will be possibly other items coming to you throughout the year if we get those in place, and because it will require appropriating more money. So we'll be doing that. Again, these resolutions are finalizing, approving, and adopting the expenses. Also, authorizing the documents to be filed with the county auditor, County of Ventura, which are due by July 7th. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Great. Any questions? Councilmember Gama?
Yeah, on the first one, you said the general fund would have to cover it, and the second and third, I believe you said the enterprise fund.
No, not
no?
the enterprise fund. The fund balances for those districts. So money that's been collected specifically from the assessments previously have monies left over unspent. So we can use those to cover any overage.
Okay, but on the first one, that's going to come from the general fund?
Correct.
Okay, can explain why? Is it by default, or is there a fund that has been depleted?
Yeah, well, the lighting one, as I mentioned, most of that money, all of it, essentially goes to paying our utility bill for our street lighting. As you know, the rates have continued to go up every year with those, so that fund has no balance left. We've previously spoken in the past years about possibly creating what would be called an overlay district, where that portion would go back out again to see if the public were willing to be assessed additionally to cover that difference. The other two funds have, by the nature of what we've done in those districts, we've built up a balance that we still have money on left to spend. So again, just like with the drainage district, if we end up getting into doing chemical applications, which would have to go through the state and permitting process and all that, that would require a bunch of other work and a bunch of other expenditures, which would be coming back to ask you for permission.
Then my last question is we, when we passed our budget, we anticipated this and built it into the budget, correct?
Yes, but I wanted to reiterate sort of the point I think you were making, which is that lighting overlay district, or I'm sorry, the lighting districts, it is becoming more common that because most cities are in this position where the lighting costs have increased more than the original expected amounts, that we can't just add to our districts. We have to actually create a second district that overlays the first district. So that's something that we plan to look at and sort of prioritize and bring back. Right, I think one of the things we're looking at right now is we are looking at all the utility rates and everything. So we are trying to put them in order of the most important to or I guess most costly to the general fund, and then to the least costly. So it's on our list to look at, and we'll bring that back to the council at some point. But yes, we expected that from prior years. We've planned for it, we budgeted it, but the long-term solution is we need to figure out a way to not have the general fund subsidize that.
So was this the first time or the second time? Or?
No, it's not the first, and it's probably been for a few years, I would guess.
It's the past, I'd say at least 6-7 years, if not longer, that we've had this amount. Previous years, we've had much smaller amounts that had to be subsidized. 10, 15,000, but as you can see now, we're talking about $56,000.
Yeah, and electricity just goes up, so it's something we'll have to look at doing the overlay. But because we follow the Prop 218 process, because we have to create an overlay, it is a process that voters can protest and all that. So we have to make sure we do a good job of explaining to everybody why it's needed, and what does it mean if you don't do it? It means potentially that services could be cut. So we'd have to have that conversation and explain that. So.
And just one more note, previous city attorneys have also given their opinion on it, and as those amounts were smaller at times, because of the process to go through and then do the analysis for it and do a whole Prop 218, at that point it was determined that it would be not useful to go through that entire process and spend a lot of money to do it and risk still not getting it. Obviously now we're seeing that this amount is getting larger and larger, so it's something that we can, as James mentioned, we can go back and take a look at and see if it's worth the effort and expense.
Let's go to Mayor Pro Tem first, and we'll come back to you.
So, the street lightings specifically, are these just old systems? Like, are these LED type lightings?
Yeah, they've been changed out, but it's the number of lights that we have. Our bills run about $15,000, $16,000 a month.
So does any of our buildings have solar panels?
Yes, some of our buildings do have solar. We don't have it on our street lighting.
Would it be worthwhile for us to investigate that just to offset some of these rises? Because costs are going to continue to go up. I have an electric car at home, and I'm transitioning to solar, right? But it just seems like CPA is gonna work for me as a resident, but for street lighting, we're still at the mercy of SCE, correct?
Correct. I mean, there are systems that could be put in. They also take up a large amount of space in order to be able to store the electricity to make sure that the lights stay running all night. That'd be something we'd have to do a lot more research into to see whether that would be something that would help offset this.
Okay, I was just wondering if what are other cities doing to offset these costs, and maybe we can start just thinking of, brainstorming these ideas. That's all I got.
Great. Councilmember Perez?
Well, that was my question. What are other cities doing? Are they dealing with this same issue? Or is this just because we have an older system? Like, what is the?
Actually, I'm not sure what other cities are doing. We could go back and take a look to see if any of them have switched over to electric or solar. But off the top of my head, I don't know if there's anybody that's gone to solar-powered street lighting yet.
Or not necessarily solar powered, but are they having the same issue with this fund and having money issues and having to?
Yes.
And why can't we add to it? Why do we have to create another overlay? What is that?
It's because of the voter approval process, and the voters approved this assessment. So every year we go through the process to re-levy that assessment, but we can't change it without going back to the voters. And the reason cities do the overlay is because if we go back to the voters and we try to just modify the existing one and they say no, then we don't get any, like the district is gone. And so what the way cities have done it, to answer that question of like what's the first thing cities typically do when they find themselves in this spot, they create the overlay district, and they say it's basically, it's not touching the underlying one that pays for the most of it, but then it'll be like a second one on top of it that pays the difference. And that way, if it fails, you're not in any worse position than you are now, other than you spent probably $20,000 to go through the Prop 218 process. But if it passes, then you're caught up on your electric rates for a while at least. But I think everybody here knows, with the way Edison rates have increased, that's an ongoing battle to try to stay ahead of that. But it's not uncommon. I would say, I think most cities that are in our age group, especially of a 75-year-old city, and those assessment districts are 30 to 40 years old, that what we originally thought electricity would cost back then, electricity is now costing more than that. That's really the problem in a nutshell. So lighting assessment district overlay is like probably step one to look into, and then as part of that, we can look at what other cities are doing if there's cost-effective solutions there. So.
Great, we're going to Council Hernandez.
Yeah, so in the report here, it does say that pre-existing street lighting assessments are exempt from Proposition 218. So 2 of our districts are exempt, right?
All of them are subject to Prop 218.
Okay, so we don't have pre-existing street lighting assessments?
Well, the assessment that is issued here, or up for adoption now, is the one that's been in existence.
So we wouldn't be exempt then?
Yes, no, we wouldn't.
Okay.
The existing one is, a new one would not be.
Yes.
Okay. And I know at some point you considered moving the light district over to CPA, but you didn't do it for whatever reason. What was that reason that we didn't want to move it over to CPA, Clean Power Alliance?
Oh, the Clean Power Alliance?
Because the costs would have gone up, which would have made the deficit even larger.
Yeah, it's, and I'm not as familiar with that agreement as.
Yeah, because sometimes their rates, they bring their rates down when the costs go down, so.
Yeah, I know, I don't want to put him on the spot, but I know Charles actually had a call with CPA, and it's specific to streetlights. That's something on their end, and Charles can maybe speak to a little bit better, but in their process, they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Oh, okay.
The cost would have gotten.
Yeah, it's a really good summary of the city managers.
You can sit down now.
The Clean Power Alliance indicated that while they can be competitive and in most cases provide actually a slight discount from Edison on residential and small customer rates, they aren't there with the street light rates. They're not competitive, and they actually would have to charge cities slightly more than Edison currently charges for streetlights.
Well, great, thank you for checking.
Well, that's another possibility, though, is if they get there and if there's the ability to opt into CPA where it would actually be a savings, and that could be another possibility. It's just not there yet.
Right, okay.
One final quick question. Are the lights out to the lighthouse, are those considered street lights?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know we have the map of all of our street lighting. Charles, do you know if those
So-
are part
so
of our
this-
street lighting map out to the promenade? Yes.
So basically, it's just street lights,
Yes.
mediums in the housing tracks.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Typically.
Okay, this will be the last question. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So, the Bubbling Springs Canal, you stated that you're waiting for an EPA cert to spray that area, right?
We're going through the process. We actually just recently found out that we'd have to do some other documentation submittal. So we don't know, we haven't gotten to that point yet. So there's some other things that we're gonna need to do for environmental review before they'll move forward with looking at processing that permit for us.
But it has shown to be effective?
Yes, there's a lot of agencies that have drainage channels that do use chemical application to control growth.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. So we're going to now open the public hearing and take public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments? The time is now 7:38.
No public comments for this item.
Great, thank you. The public input has concluded. I will now close the public hearing, and the time is now 7:38. Any other discussion points? Okay, so we'll move on to, we have before us the recommendation to adopt 3 resolutions of the City Council in the City of Port Hueneme, California, one for each of the following districts, ordering the levy and collection of assessments for the fiscal year beginning 1 July 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, pursuant to the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972. Lighting Maintenance Assessment District 87-1, Parking and Media Maintenance Assessment District 91-1, Port Hueneme Drainage Maintenance Assessment District 95-3, and to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement with the Ventura County Auditor Controller for the billing of direct assessments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? No further discussion? Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Yes.
Councilmember Perez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Yes.
And Mayor McQueen Lejeune.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you, Mr. Camarillo, for your presentation. Next, we're going to move to business item number 16, citywide neighborhood parking analysis report. Will staff please present the report?
Good evening again. What you have before you tonight is a report that council approved to move forward on back in November of last year. It was to take a look holistically at various things that we might be able to do to better provide parking. And so we have our traffic engineer, Mr. Tom Miracle, who has done a study for us. And part of this, you all received a technical memorandum that Tom produced. And it summarizes all of his findings. And then he is going to be presenting this PowerPoint to go over a shorter version of a technical memorandum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Slightly shorter. All right. So we did essentially looked at 8 areas. We sat down with the city staff and kind of said, where can we best use the resources that were allocated for the project? A lot of the effort for this project was going out and collecting data. As you can imagine, collecting data in these 8 areas, weekday, weekend, and then trying to account for evenings, which ended up being our peak period, and all of the street sweeping, moving things around. We had to keep coming back and back and back so that we could get it. It took about 3 months to collect all the data. We collected the data in January through March, again, weekday and weekend, daytime and overnight. Looked at both the public parking and private parking. So as we went through neighborhoods, we looked at the parking in people's front yards where they had cars parked, where there were not cars parked, because we had to collect both the supply and the demand. And then we had some general observations, which I'll go over a little bit, and then summarized and evaluated the data and are presenting our recommended alternatives. The areas are Area 1 and Area 2, Victoria Marina and Pacific Collection. Area B, Yankee Landing. Area C, Bolker Park. Area D is the Panoma Clara area. Area E was parking lot E, and Area F was parking lot F, and then Seaview Street. Kind of our brief general observations is that Area 1, Area B, Area C, and many parts of Area D had utilization that was approaching, or in one case, exceeding 100%. So it's probably not news to the council, but it's good to know we have data that supports what the community has been saying for several years, that these areas don't have any parking available. Some overflow of Area 1 goes into the surrounding streets. Catch basins have curbs that are painted red. There are some where it's very appropriate to have them painted red because of the drainage in the area. If a vehicle is parked there, it could block the drainage to get into the inlets, but that's not the case for all of them. Areas of high utilization have cars that were parked at red curb, cars that were parked on the curb returns, and then parked in yard areas off of the paved driveway, which is not allowed by the current code. Parking lots E and F are essentially empty at night and less than 50% during the day. Again, these are observations that were taken now, not in the summer. It's probably a vastly different look at things for those lots, particularly during the day in the summer. And then on Seaview Street, the on-street parking is not near capacity, but the private parking in the neighborhood that is on that street is right at 100%. So some of them are out on the street, but there's still lots of capacity left on the street. This is kind of the data summarized in a couple of tables. The first one is the weekday, and you can see Area 1 has a utilization of 97% for the public parking, 83% for the private parking, for a total of about 90%. Area B, 87% of public parking utilization, 83% for total utilization. Area C was 92% of the public parking and about 82% of the private parking. And then you can see at the bottom, Seaview, the private parking utilization was over 100%. Now, one of the things is in the parking industry, what we typically look for or strive to achieve is somewhere around 85% utilization. Lots of paid parking across the area and across the nation is sort of set at this 85%. So for instance, in Ventura, their parking policies are based upon an 85% goal, which means that when you get to where you want to go, there should be a space available. It may only be one space, but there should be a space available. So that's kind of what we're using as our threshold. So when you look at the red on these tables, they're way above 85. The yellowish color is at or just above the 85. And then for weekend, the weekend peak was actually during the day. And again, very similar, 83% utilization for public, 81% for private. Area B, 96%, Area C, 91% for public parking areas. And then for Seaview, 97% utilization for those private areas. So this data really does confirm kind of what we've been talking about for a few years in regards to parking. So there's some general things that we kind of are want the council to consider. Not all of these can be achieved right away. Some of them can, some of them might be longer term. And these are things that can kind of go across the community fairly well. Removing red curb at the drainage inlets where feasible. Installing some stop signs at some four-way intersections where there's a lot of red curbs, so you can take that red curb out. We've had a discussion about that in the past. Mark the crosswalks to kind of move the crosswalks further into the intersection so that the impact of the new clear zone law doesn't quite impact us as much because it's from the crosswalk. Add angle parking where feasible. There's a number of locations we identified in the report where angle parking could be put in to add a little more supply. And even looking in a couple areas of reducing the number of lanes on a street where the capacity doesn't need more than one lane to add parking on the street where there's none now. For private parking, allowing, so right now the municipal code says you can only park in a paved area in front of the garages, and then it has a maximum amount of percentage of the yard area that can be impervious. So one of the things that that we can look at is changing those a little bit to maybe allow those driveways to be a little bit wider. Those areas that are wider than the garage, maybe they are not totally impervious, but they can be pervious materials or semi-pervious materials so that it doesn't quite have the impact of everything being paved. But it does give the chance for people to add, another space that a car could park that's not on the grass or in the side yard or something. Encourage the use of on-site areas in private multifamily developments. So there's a lot of the areas that were observed where there's parking available in the private areas off the street, but because every unit sort of has their assigned number of spaces, if somebody only has one or two cars, but they have 3 spaces because they have a garage and then they have a driveway that they can put a couple of spaces, but they're not utilizing them all, that maybe the community can work with itself through the HOA to say, hey, I've got an extra space, can somebody use it, and kind of work that out. There is some private supply available, particularly in the A1 neighborhood. And then kind of some general parking regulation things to consider. Moving to either a permitted or a complaint-based enforcement of parking in front of your own driveway. So right now, the vehicle code prohibits that practice. It does allow a local agency to establish a permit program where somebody can come in and get a permit from the city to park in front of their driveway. A permit system without having any other parking permit programs could be an administrative burden, so you could go to just having a complaint-based enforcement rather than a proactive enforcement. Whether that's being done, that's one other question. Prohibit commercial vehicle parking. This is something that you can do. The problem with the general commercial vehicle parking is a lot of people's larger pickup trucks are considered by the vehicle code to be a commercial vehicle. So we have to be a little careful about going that far, because in residential neighborhoods, if people have businesses where they have a truck or a van or something that is defined as a commercial vehicle, they would not be allowed to park on the street. And so I think we want to consider that, but that may be going a little too far. We can define a commercial vehicle separately. Prohibit oversized vehicles. So these would be motorhomes and large vehicles. So right now, tractor trailers and tractors, so trucks and their trailers are not allowed to park. But we still have, and our observations were that there's only a few across the entire city that we observed. Motorhomes mostly. We don't.
I think we do have restrictions for motorhomes, right?
I did not find one in the code. Now, maybe we do, and I just didn't find it.
My uncle would beg to differ with you.
Okay.
He got a ticket.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's an oversized vehicle. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But it not. I think one of the ideas here was sort of fine tuning and crafting some updating the regulations to be able to enforce that better.
Yeah. And then lastly would be the unattached trailers. So people leaving their boats and other types of recreational trailers out in the street that are not attached to a vehicle. Okay. So now to get into some of the specific areas. Area A1, this is the Victoria Marina area up near Victoria at Hemlock. There's actually an opportunity to add some parking on Victoria Avenue, not up at the intersection of Hemlock where the third lane is added, but south of there where there's only 2 northbound lanes. There's a really wide curb lane with a bike lane. So some parking could be added there. There's plenty of room. The bike lane would have to be restriped over. Adding angled parking along Yardarm, Spinnaker, Sexton, and Rudder. This would actually, though, require the streets to be one-way because the streets aren't wide enough. So again, just something to consider. The other thing is the clear zone for fire would not be the full 20 feet. But we thought we wanted to go ahead and put that out there for discussion because this neighborhood does have alleys also, so there is secondary access. Other neighborhoods where there's not that secondary access, this doesn't make sense at all from a public safety perspective. Encourage property owners to add additional parking spaces on site. So there's a picture here of pretty typical driveway there where they can park 4 cars, and then there's kind of this is a little bit distorted of a picture because the camera, but there's about 7 or 8 feet between the cars in the middle where there's that dark door that is for their laundry room area. If they do a couple of feet of widening, that gives them enough room to park a 5th vehicle on their driveway. But again, this is something that the community or the individual property owners would have to do. And then again, as I talked about earlier, encourage the sharing of private parking resources. So where somebody only has a single vehicle and they don't need to use the whole driveway, maybe they could give up one of those spaces to a neighbor. Area B, which is Yankee Landing. This was an area that was also very high, up in the high 90s. There might be some areas, and again, this is kind of an HOA thing, that the HOA could reevaluate how their private parking is done on site to see if they could fit in any more spaces. Particularly maybe on the evenings and weekends where there's areas where you could put a car where, you know, day-to-day travel might be kind of tight, but if it's overnight, maybe it's okay. And some of that parking already happens when the street sweeping occurs. People are allowed to park in that neighborhood in areas that gets pretty tight, but it's allowed by the HOA for that one day. And then up at Hemlock, there's quite a bit of red curb for a right turn pocket onto to Patterson. There's really no, as far as we can tell, there's no traffic need for that to be quite that long, if that need to be there at all. But we think, at least in the interim, until we can kind of do a longer term analysis looking at the traffic volumes and things, we could take about half of that and turn that back into parking. Gets us about 6 or 7 spaces. Area C, the Bolker Park neighborhood. Again, having the HOAs kind of look within themselves to see if there's more areas they could create parking on side, and also the sharing of parking, as I've talked about. Within the park itself, you're currently not allowed to park there as a resident overnight. People do. The park is full overnight. So our recommendation is we just remove that restriction, because people are doing it, we're not enforcing it, we're probably not going to enforce it. And it's a council decision, but if that's something we should consider, just removing those restrictions and recognize how it's being used now. And then Bolker Drive to the north of the park is pretty wide. It's 50 feet curb to curb. It's actually way too wide. Putting in angled parking will do a variety of things. It will visually narrow the street, so hopefully people drive a little slower. It'll also add quite a few parking spaces. And I'm recommending the east side just because the placement there's a few fire hydrants, but they're all on the west side. So you kind of get better utilization of that space if you do it along the east side. Area D, the Pomona Clara neighborhood. Adding angled parking along the north side of Pleasant Valley, where it's really wide. There's kind of a wide pedestrian area that's delineated with a bunch of delineators. That's for people to walk into the base and for kids to go into the school that's there. That could be narrowed down to 5 feet, and we could put angled parking in there. And then also in the area to the east, where there is sidewalk and there's 2 lanes going westbound, that 2 lanes is not needed at night. It's needed, according to the port, to the naval base, it's needed in the morning because everybody coming in, it's a pretty good queue. What we're thinking, the overnight, we could remove the parking restriction and allow people to park in that second lane next to the curb at night. That gets quite a bit of parking for that neighborhood, though they do have to park across the street.
Tom, if I could just note right there. So we've tried to come up with like these like the menu of options that we could roll out. But I wanted to note, I think that was a good point, that some of them would require some follow-up conversations, like Tom had said, with either agencies like the Navy base or some of the HOAs. And so I will just note that I did get a follow-up from the Navy base that they would want to talk about Pleasant Valley leading into the base. So on some of these, we're putting these proposals together, but some of them we would follow up with those agencies and come back with what we can do. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. So.
And to continue sort of on that vein of discussion, next we're looking at sort of some future things that the council may want to consider to further increase parking that are going to incur quite a bit more costs. This first one, adding off-street parking. So there's currently a vacant lot near areas A1 and A2, and getting a portion of that lot to be public parking. Now, there is a development project that's been approved. The approval, it's been quite a while since that approval happened. As I understand it, it's John Ashkar. But when that development comes back through, maybe some public parking could be extracted from that development. Maybe the developer would be willing to allow the public to park there in certain areas overnight. So I think a discussion when that development comes back through to get reapproved could really help that neighborhood. We tried to observe how people were using their garages. Really tough to do. We have no legal right to go in and tell people to show us their garage. But when Jim, who did the analysis, drove around, his estimate was about 50% of the garages were completely full of something other than a car. Quite a bit of them had expanded living space, you know, whether it's a second family room or a man cave, or they had, you know, literally, there was one they observed where somebody had actually built a bedroom in there. And, you know, that's not uncommon. Every city I've ever worked in, you see that. And they just tend to keep their garage door closed, and it takes extraordinary efforts to go enforce that. But that is something, if this got really bad and we wanted to look at that, that is something we could do, but that's a very heavy-handed city approach and would require a lot of discussions with the attorney and probably court orders to get people to show us their garages. So not necessarily a road I think we want to go down, but that is something we could do. And then adding on street curb parking on Patterson, this would be one where the current traffic volumes on that street are fairly low. We don't need 2 lanes for the capacity. We could keep the bike lane, 1 vehicle lane, and put parking, but we wouldn't want to do that until we like resurface the street, work with Oxnard so we can transition, and then kind of do an analysis of what does that do to traffic flow and that kind of thing. So it's something where there's an opportunity, but it's something that we think is future when we get ready to do some work on that street. And then lastly, you know, the best way, and of course we see this with the arguments about ADUs and about mixed-use housing, is trying to get people to not buy as many cars and use as many cars as they have. So again, I threw in here increase active transportation infrastructure and public transit service. We have seen in the city of Ventura that I've done a lot of work in. The city of Carpinteria is beginning to see this too. People are owning less cars because they have opportunities. So just something to kind of keep out there is that may be a long-term strategy. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Fred to summarize some recommendations.
So this last slide here are the things that we really think are the ones that we can get to more quickly and bring some relief to. Removing red curbs at some of the drainage inlets will free up some parking. We can, as you know, we did a pilot project, you approved a pilot project for stop signs and 4-way stops over on Panoma Street, so we could extend that out, which would get us some additional parking in that area. One of the things we were also looking at recently, we were notified by Gold Coast that they were possibly thinking about removing the bus stops on Panoma as well. And the 2 bus stops on Panoma take up quite a bit of red curb. So we haven't heard anything more from them lately regarding whether or not they're planning on still moving forward with that, those bus stop removals. We can follow up with them to see if they have any updates regarding that. If that were to happen, then we could also extend that to include more stop signs, make it a 4-way stop, and then remove all of the red curb if the bus stop wasn't there. And then adding the parking along south side of Hemlock Street at the intersection with Patterson, allowing the overnight parking on the north side of Pleasant Valley. Again, as our city manager just mentioned, that would also still require us to work with the Navy base on that. make sure we weren't having any conflicts with them regarding their access through that Pleasant Valley Gate. With the approval of allowing people to park in front of their own driveway, that would free up quite a bit of parking spaces. And then, as Tom mentioned earlier, we could do it two ways. We could do it by permit, so somebody would have it and it would be able to be verified that the vehicle there belongs to that address, or on a complaint-based thing where if someone, let's say a neighbor, decided, well, I'm just going to park in front of my neighbor's driveway, obviously someone's going to be calling pretty quickly, and then a response would be required for that, to have them move their vehicle. So that's an option, but that would open up a lot of parking spaces. And then others that would require more work, obviously, going back to change things in the municipal code to make things more clear about what types of vehicles or things would be allowed in certain areas, and prohibiting oversized vehicles, to allow that to be more parking spaces. And Tom did mention that there wasn't a lot of it, but in some areas it seems like every little bit counts. And if you have questions, Tom's here, I'm here, Charles Cable is here, so we'll.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Questions? Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is, reading your report, there is areas for improvements for the 50% hardscape landscape. Would you recommend taking that down to 30%?
So it's hard to say what that number would be. We have to sit down with the Community Development Department. My thought is we leave the 50%, but we allow pervious or semi-pervious pavement areas of a certain size to be within that 50%. So then it's not allowing people to just pave their whole front yard.
But where is that derived from? Why did we arbitrarily pick 50%?
I don't know. The code, as I see it, it's got some codification dates. It's been around a long time. It's not atypical. Most cities don't allow you to pave your whole front yard. They don't allow you to park on non-paved surfaces as an aesthetic thing. So the 50% is mostly an aesthetic thing, so that there is some green in everybody's yard. Whether that 50% can be 40% or 30%, again, I think we'd have to do a little more analysis, which is why I was thinking maybe a more expedient way to do that is just keep the 50%, but allow up to a certain amount of square footage to be, as long as it's not completely impervious.
Well, the only reason why I say that is this has been discussed before, and it's, we're enforcing it. Our code enforcement's enforcing it. I mean, we're getting complaints from neighbors who are saying, oh yeah, code enforcement came by and they were like, you're at 40%, so you're not in compliance. And it's just an arbitrary number. And to me, it's more of treating our single-family residents as an HOA and not allowing them to do whatever they want to do. So I just think we've arrived at that 50% as that's the way it's always been. I have heartburn with that.
Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to Councilman Hernandez first.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Camarillo and Mr. Miracle, for your presentation and your analysis. When you did the weekday and weekend surveys, did you do nighttime?
Yes, we did weekday during the day, midday, and then the evenings were 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Okay.
So, and that was definitely the peak during the middle of the week,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, so was there any case where you found cars taking up more than one parking space, parking horizontally against the curb. And I know that happens in the Yankee Landing area, because I live in that area. And so I'm asking that question because I'm wondering if there was any possibility that delineators would force people to not take up two spaces if they knew that they were parked within the delineated areas, that they wouldn't take up more than two spaces. Because once one car along the street parks in two spaces, all the other cars kind of like bump each other, and there's like half a car between all these cars, and it just seems that you could create more parking if people just parked
Yeah,
with that consideration.
Yeah, so going out and painting actual parking space markings where you're painting every 20 feet, you're putting a little T.
Yeah.
It's something we could do. It's very expensive to put in and maintain. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't recommend it.
Probably doesn't look very good either.
He did not observe that kind of thing happening too much because there's so much demand. They're probably fitting in 40 feet. Lots of neighborhoods, they're fitting in 3 cars. And if we mark them for 2, we're actually potentially taking away spaces. So there's kind of a 2 sides of that coin in terms of making it efficient, but also maybe making it not allowing them to be even more efficient, because they ultimately, the neighbors are going to try and fit wherever they can and make it as efficient as possible. And if your neighbor is taking up a space and a half, I'm sure his neighbors are saying something to them, just because of, but again, there's nothing in his notes. He told me he did not see any abnormal parking other than red curb and curb returns. Both of those are not allowed, but nothing where people were parking at a slight angle, or they were trying to fit in, or where there was kind of this inefficiency, just because in those neighborhoods, there's so much demand that it just wasn't happening from his observations.
Did you take the opportunity also to look at parking citations to see the kinds of parking citations people were getting? Or
We
was
did
that-
not. We did not.
Okay, that's it.
Councilmember Gama?
Yeah, I get a little indigestion when I think about the single-family homes and that arbitrary amount of hardscape versus greenscape in the front, because some lots are in an inverted pie shape, and so the front, there's less area for parking if you were to expand, and then other lots are the opposite. And so when you drive around, and I don't think you did much in between Pleasant Valley and Channel Islands, Fifth Place, Pearson, all those areas.
No.
Did you look? You didn't look at those
No.
areas?
But those would also be candidates where allowing parking in front of your driveway gets all of those spaces.
Right. No, and I, in my neighborhood, parking's not a problem except during Beach Festival or when there's a bunch of pickleballers going on it. But generally speaking, it's pretty good. But when I go to other parts of the city, it's like, it'd be really frustrating to live, to have to battle parking every day. And so yeah, I think we need to keep that in mind, that some of the lots in Hueneme are very big, like Gill Avenue. I mean, you could put 6 cars in some of those front yards with a nice driveway and still be having that percentage met. But then other areas aren't so generous with space, so I think. And then the other thing I think that is kind of odd for me is Seaview. Seaview gets packed every night. Is that what your findings were?
No, our observations is that, at least during that time period that we looked at it, it was about 50 to 60% full at night. The private parking behind the sidewalk was, again, it was the weeknight, it was 103%. But on the street, it wasn't. And I don't know if people, some people are parking out on the street, but maybe you feel more comfortable parking your vehicle on the private property rather than putting it in the street. But
Yeah,
that's not what we observed. That doesn't mean that it doesn't.
Yeah, that's a little odd, because I live very close there, and I do a lot of walking and stuff, but it's always packed. Like, there's always a mess on the street and everything. And then the other thing, when I hear the word commercial vehicles, I think we're talking port truck traffic, because there are times where, and I know they're not supposed to do this, but port auto transport trucks will park on Seaview, and then that has a cascading effect. But yeah, and then the other thing.
Okay, so I hate doing this to you. We're still in the question phase. We have public comments to go, so let's not get too far into the discussion.
Okay.
Anyone else? I'm sorry about that, Mr. Grama. Anyone else? Go ahead.
One last question. Boker Park. So were majority of those cars, did they come from the apartments, or were they actually Boker Park condominiums areas?
We don't know because we didn't check license plates. We just see the car parked and we're noting that in our observations. But we do know that the north part is more heavily parked than the south part by a little bit. So the apartments do appear to be having more, which is why putting that angle parking on the north part of Bulker Drive will sort of help them.
And then would it be beneficial for us, because it's a huge park, to widen that area for parking? Would the residents, I mean, I'm pretty sure they would love that.
To reduce the green area within the park to add parking?
Yes.
That's not a.
No, but it would alleviate some.
Anywhere you can add parking spaces would help alleviate the problem. It's just a matter of, do you want to take away park space? I imagine you don't have a ton of park space in your community. But that's a decision you guys would have to make.
It's another conversation.
Note there too that I think part of this round of like that low-hanging fruit, if you can go back to that last slide, was starting with some simple things that don't cost a whole lot. For one thing, we don't have any money in the budget to do some of these things. I think a neighboring city this week just approved $500,000 just to do some parking engineering, city that you do some work with. Some parking engineering in their downtown. So actually doing some of this engineering and then doing the work can be expensive. So we tried to find these like low-hanging fruit, simple cost things. I think to the Bulker Park question, as of now, the city does not even encourage people to use the lot that's there. So that's where we're starting with. First step is, let's make that decision. Are we gonna like encourage the community to actually use that lot? And then from there, long-term, we can look at like next steps from there. But as of now, there are still signs there that say no parking overnight, if I remember correctly. So that was the thought there. I think the other thing, because there was a few questions about the lot coverage. So we talked about bringing back changes, and I think we just skipped it accidentally when we went through this, but one of those changes was allowing the wider on-site driveways for single-family development. That's essentially that lot coverage issue. One of the ideas that we had talked about was because in sort of direct response to the questions that were asked, it looked like most cities picked that 50% number. I don't know if that's just arbitrary or what the story is, but that seemed to be common. So what we were proposing to do was essentially trying like a pilot project of saying something like the first 20 houses, I'm just throwing a number out there, that want to try to expand with this permeable material. The idea being there's only two reasons for that lot coverage standard: aesthetics, which I think I get the sense that we're at the point now where we're willing to give on aesthetics a little bit to get more parking. But the second reason is water.
The drainage.
Drainage. Yeah, drainage. So the idea would be if we said, let's say that we're going to test this out and do something that really hasn't been done, but let the next 20 houses who want to try this come in and they can expand it as long as it's permeable, and that addresses the water issue. Then from there, then we can come back and see if it worked, if it caused any other problems, if all that kind of stuff. Because from what we found, we couldn't really find other cities that had really even tried that yet. So, and I think that is like the last thing I want to say to this is that we tried to do this when we heard about the things like the state laws with not allowing us to require parking for ADUs, not allowing or requiring us to now have more daylighting, it's called, and losing spaces. So we were trying to do this evaluation to really be proactive. I think to Tom's point, looking at the results, one of the areas is already 103% parked. So I think cars are beating us to the punch. But we wanted to try to make sure we came forward with some simple, quick, low-cost ideas that get us some spots that'll start helping. And then it's probably not going to be just that and we're done. It's probably going to be an ongoing conversation. So I just wanted to add that.
Great. So let's move to the public comments. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Yes, David Scrivener.
Stiff here, sorry. So I had a bit more written here, but one of my concerns is Ventura County is getting overwhelmed by traffic to start with. You know, I was in LA here a while back and horrified by the traffic, and I came back and got on Rice, and it's like, oh my God, you know, it's coming here. So we have way too many new buildings coming in without enough parking, without enough infrastructure. I believe Oxnard has about 30,000 new residents planned in the next little bit, and I don't see any improvements in any of the major streets, so it's going to be bad. There are two things that I would like to bring up with the parking that we didn't talk about today. The first one is, for some reason, a while back, people painted gray over the red by fire hydrants. People pull up, park in front of it, don't see the fire hydrant, get a ticket. I don't know why those are not painted red. You got 15 foot on either side of the fire hydrant, and there are times where the parking people get up with a measuring tape and measure it, and if you're 6 inches over, you get a ticket. Now, if the goal is to keep that area open so fire trucks can access it, then I don't know why they're not painted red, and I have no idea why somebody painted them gray, so you can't even see them. I'd like you to think about that. The other one that I want to bring up is the Miranda Park. We've got the northeast corner of that park, which has been filled with, for lack of a better word, ne'er-do-wells for years. People that get in there, they drink, they shoot drugs up. They're hiding under the trees. The only thing that ever worked to get them out of there was when the area was coned off. You would have thought that if they wanted to stay in the park, they'd have moved to another area. They don't, because they don't want to be seen. That back area is kind of hidden back under the trees, and there are people there constantly living in their cars. And I would really like a recommendation from the council to put a time limit on how long you can park there. We stopped coning it off because the pickleball players needed to use it, and which is what it was for. But we have these people who are pretty much living there, creating problems. And the only way I can see that, when they couldn't park back up under the trees, they left the park. They didn't want to sit in the middle where everybody can see what they're doing. So I would really like to think about having you put a 2-3 hour time limit, which is not going to bother anybody using the park, but it would help. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And we have 2 written comments. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, city staff, and fellow community members. My name is Hilda Ocampo, and I reside on Clara Street. I'm writing to express my deep concerns regarding the current parking regulations affecting front yard usage in our community. As a homeowner on a corner property lot providing ample open space in my front yard, I find the existing ordinance limiting and inefficient. The current municipal code specifically section 10226 subsection C restricts certain activities in front yards, including the parking of inoperable vehicles. While it does not explicitly prohibit all front yard parking, the code imposes limitations on the amount of hardscaping allowed in these areas. For instance, ordinance number 795 limits fixed concrete, asphalt, or similar hardscape materials to no more than 50% of the required front yard area. This restriction effectively reduces the available parking space and imposes conditions more typical of a homeowners association rather than a city ordinance designed to address practical parking needs. Given the growing demand for parking, especially with the rise of accessory dwelling units in our community, I respectfully propose amending ordinance number 795 to reduce the hardscaping limitation from 50% to 30%. This adjustment would allow for wider driveways and additional parking spaces that are not limited to the area directly in front of garages, thereby increasing parking availability for residents on their own properties. I believe this change is a practical solution that will benefit many homeowners and support our community's evolving needs. Thank you, Hilda J. Ocampo. Dear Georgiana Alvarez, here is the revised under 500 words written submission to the City Council. I and my family are new residents to Port Hueneme. As in May, I bought a townhouse on the 300 block of Surfside Drive. We have an additional car that cannot be accommodated by my 2 single-car garages. Also, the HOA at Beachport Cottages has 14 visitor parking places for 30 townhouses and does not allow residents to park overnight. The parking on the 300 block of Surfside Drive is extremely restrictive with 1 to 2 hour parking limits and no overnight parking. Same thing for the parking city lots, E and F on Surfside with no overnight parking. It is my understanding this has not always been so on Surfside and overnight parking was not prohibited. I know the city is doing a parking survey. However, it appears that this is going to be a lengthy endeavor and I need a resolution pretty quickly. Councilmember Stephen Gamos, who I spoke with briefly last week, suggested to me that it was possible to get a parking permit for one of the city lots as a resident. I am requesting as a homeowner resident a parking permit for overnight parking either on the street of the 300 block of Surfside Drive or in one of the city parking lots on Surfside. This is something that many municipalities do for a fee. In addition, the side street industrial also has very restrictive parking and no overnight parking, which I understand was also not always so restricted. The cul-de-sac area at the end of industrial is where there is unrestricted parking. However, there are only about 5 parking spaces that are always full. I do not know why the parking is so restrictive. I understand it is close to the beach and there are always parking concerns. However, I believe it is reasonable for residents to have the right to park on city streets without over-restrictive parking limitations. I had planned to come to the city council meeting in person and present this verbally. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm not able to attend tonight. Thank you for your consideration, Jeanette Orlando. And that concludes public comment.
Great, thank you. So we have before us a recommendation to receive and file this report and direct staff as to what additional actions, if any, we want staff to complete or perform other analysis. Is there a motion and a second?
Motion to receive and file and to approve the staff recommendations.
Is there a second?
So just to be clear on that, I think we didn't list it in the report, but the staff recommendations are to start with the immediate short-term recommendations.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Is there a second? I second. Any further discussion?
Yes. So I'd like to comment on the 50% issue that's being discussed. So that was put in there by the Landscape Policy Committee that was developed a couple years ago to overhaul and update our landscape policy. And the reason for that was many reasons. Some of them being environmental, infrastructure, and landscape. It was because aesthetic issues, green space, and we just didn't want our yards looking like Oxnard where people are parking multiple cars in the front yard and it starts to look kind of trashy. So we wanted our community to look the way it does now, which is nice and clean and people have green space. And it's just, that was the reason why we kept the 50%, basically.
Great. Any other comments?
Yeah,
You
I have a comment.
Okay, go right ahead.
Yeah, so I just think that you could still aesthetically make your house look good with 30% landscape. Just gonna, to me, it's being enforced, and it's rigid, and with ADUs coming more and more, parking's getting scarce. We're setting them up for more tickets. That's what we're doing. And code enforcement is very aggressive, and something needs to be done. We just can't keep this. We can't keep this just because it's aesthetic. Are we going to worry about aesthetics, or are we going to worry about parking?
Well, it wasn't just aesthetics. It was, I mean, a lot less soil in the yard causes potential flooding, rain, less ground, doesn't allow rainwater to absorb, and it could cause infrastructure issues for houses. Water seeps in underneath if it can't absorb into the ground. So there were multiple reasons, not just aesthetics.
I think I would differ. I would beg to differ that more concrete away from your house would actually benefit your house, keeping water running away from it. I just think it's too intrusive to single-family residents when there's plenty of room in your front yard. There's a way to aesthetically make it look appealing and still park another car in your front driveway.
Councilmember Gama.
Yeah, I think these short-term recommendations are, I think my consensus is we all agree that we need to try to implement these and free up parking where we can. For the bigger items, I really do think that we need to come back on this and think about long-term. I know of a ADU over here on Oak Court, and there is no park. It's the one place in Hueneme where there's no parking. And so sometimes, and then one house has a really big lot, and he put a 3-unit ADU in the back. He's got RV on the side of his house, a big storage container, and he still has a big old driveway in his front with 3 or 4 cars on it. So every place is different. So I think we really have to take it case by case and try to, and then the bigger items like Pleasant Valley, I think that's a great idea. However, people race down that road. And so, there'd have to be maybe some speed humps put in. It's a really busy road in the morning, especially when the gates open and people are pouring on to work. So I think short term, yes, we should do this, but I think in the long term, we really need to start really trying to create more parking. And then, I do know that over at the collection, all those apartments, if you ever try to go over there and visit somebody and park, you can't. It's impossible to park over there. And my understanding is that you have to use your 1-car garage, and they actually limit the amount of cars you could go there with. So I don't hope that we're going to get to that point, but when there is a lack of parking and garages aren't being used and driveways aren't being used, I don't think the city wants to be a HOA, but I do believe we have to make accommodations. And then to the lady in the HOA, I don't know if we had a family on our street that had 3 college kids, and they all had a car, and they all were living at home going to college. And then when they graduate, they move on, and now we don't have a parking problem, but we used to have a parking problem. So, how do we accommodate the short-term problems versus the long-term problems? And back to Pleasant Valley, if you're going to put parking on the other side of the street, that's going to benefit everyone over here, as the Navy's going to agree to it. But then you got to slow people down. It's just kind of like cascading effect. So I think we need to go with these short-term recommendations, and over the next 2 to 3, 4 years, I think we're going to have to make additional, harder, more costly adjustments to accommodate parking.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Hernandez?
I'm ready for the vote.
Okay. No other comments?
Can I just note, with the short-term recommendations, I know the lot coverage topic is a hot topic that we hear a lot on. I think we will try to bring that back with a short-term and a long-term solution, sort of first priority before before some of the others. So that I know we have a lot of opinions on, but we'll bring it back so we can make some decisions on that. So
And that costs no money.
potentially, yeah, if we do it right, yeah.
Okay, great. Madam Clerk, please take a vote.
Okay, I'm going to take a roll call vote. Councilmember Goma,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Perez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor McQueen Lejeune.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Camarillo, for your report. All right, we'll move to item number 17, Veterans Advisory Ad Hoc Committee discussion. Will staff please present the report? City Manager?
Yes, thank
Great.
you. So back in April of 2025, the council agreed to give staff direction to move forward with starting an ad hoc Veterans Advisory Committee, with step one being advertise through all our the same way we advertise all of our commissions and committees, through our social media and through our website, and making the applications available for applicants to participate. And so we advertised those over the last couple of months. We received, I think it was 2 applications initially. We wanted to bring this back before the summer break so we can get working on it. So we gave a couple week time extension. We got a 3rd applicant. I was hoping that we'd get 2 more applicants, because it happens sometimes that, the day before we're going to council, you get the 2 other applicants. But as of now, we've received 3 applicants. So we wanted to bring those forward to the council. Again, like I said a moment ago, really because we're about to go into a summer break. And so I think there's an opportunity for the council to decide, depending on how to proceed, if there's some work that can be done, then over the summer is usually a good time to get started on it. So we wanted to bring it back. There's options that the council has at this point. One could simply be extending the application period further. Even just saying extend the application period until we have a minimum of 5 applicants, and then we can do that. We just didn't want to leave people hanging in the meantime without that decision having been made. Another could be modifying the committee's membership criteria, such as, since it's an ad hoc, saying that we're going to start with 3 members, for example, and then have them get to work, and then it doesn't mean that the later that couldn't be adjusted, or alternate direction. There's probably 1,000 different options, but we wanted to bring it back to council for council to consider, and we included the 3 applications that we've currently received. Actually, it looks, okay, yeah, it's 3. Thought maybe a 4th one did sneak in, but so we brought in the applications we've received, and the item is for the council to determine how to proceed. So, thank you.
Great. Yes, very. Oh, there was an addendum, yeah. Any questions for City Manager? Councilmember,
Is anything preventing us from going with 3?
No.
So if let's say the council approved 3, and we still gave an extension, and we say we got another 5 applicants,
right.
and then we can proceed with just picking the 2 additional.
Yeah, I think what I'd recommend at that point then is say, let's start with 3. And I think, well, actually, there's sort of 2 paths there that the council could pick. Is we could start with 3, and the council could just say that we'll take the next 2 applicants. I think we could technically do that, because it's an ad hoc, it's not a formal committee. Or the other would be start with 3, and then when we get more applications, bring them back to council to be considered.
Right.
So either of those options.
So I think that's a great idea. I just want to put this on the record. My only concern would be if we didn't get additional and one decided not to follow through, then we only have 2 and we can't do business with 2 people. So I just want to put that out there, just so everybody understands. Yeah.
That's a good point. So, yeah, I think then I would want it just to be clear then that assuming that 3 are interested in participating, then we could move forward with those. And so we could we could reach out to them and make sure of that. But as of now, they had submitted their applications. We haven't heard that anybody's withdrawn them. One of the reasons why we did bring it forward, because we thought about, should we just extend it, through the summer? But it's possible sometimes that people will move on after, a couple of months of waiting. So we wanted to just at least be able to give an update. So.
Councilmember Gama?
I'd like to make a motion, are we at that point where we could,
Let's see if there's any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll take a motion in a second.
yeah, I would just like to make a motion to approve the 3 and start the work, and before, have a conversation with the 3, make sure you're still interested, start the work, and let's get going. And so I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, before we take a motion, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Great, go right ahead.
So that'll be my motion.
I second.
Got a second?
All right, any other discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, please take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to item number 18, strategic partnership, joint meeting options, including the Port of Hueneme, Oxnard Harbor District. Will staff please present the report?
Thank you. This item is on the agenda today. We've actually had a strategic partnerships discussion a few times this year, and the council had discussed a few times how to structure a strategic partnership conversation, what agencies would be involved in a strategic partnership conversation, and I think most recently when we discussed it, I think it was about end of April, the council asked staff to put some thought into how a meeting could be held and return to council with some options on how a meeting could be held. As we mentioned in the staff report, in the last couple of months, we've had a lot of conversation related to the revenue sharing agreement with the port and other questions related to city and port collaboration, including at the end of our last council meeting, I think there was 4 different requests to discuss items with the port. So with all of that in mind, we are recommending that the council consider starting and having the first strategic partnership conversation with the port in what would essentially be a joint meeting format with all 5 council members, all 5 commissioners, the city manager and city attorney, and the CEO and port attorney, and having starting with a meeting that the agencies could work over the next couple of months on an agenda, with that agenda being discussed at a future council meeting and a future port meeting, to put an agenda together and make sure everybody agrees on a process for a joint meeting. And then the staff report includes potential goals based on a lot of the questions that have been asked, a lot of the topics that have been discussed between the city and the port, that essentially we could just get everybody in the room and have those conversations. So we are bringing that forward with that recommendation. I think the only last thing I want to add is, I think in some of the comments, maybe there was a concern that we wouldn't continue to have the joint committee of 2 and 2. But our thought is that isn't proposed or intended at all. The joint committee exists and would still exist. This was in response to a council request to have a strategic partnership meeting that would include the port, which is just it's a full group to let all 10 members be able to have input and provide feedback, guidance, etc. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but we propose this. We note that when you do try to schedule a meeting with 2 Brown Act bodies, 2 full boards, it usually requires some back and forth. It means it has to be brought to a council meeting, then a port meeting, and then potentially back and forth a couple times. So one reason we wanted to bring this forward now, on top of the fact that we've been discussing it, is that if we started now, my estimate is it would probably take a few months to actually get everything set and an agenda set and a date set for for both groups. So I think starting now means basically aiming for a September, October meeting. And if we don't have, agree soon to having such a meeting, it probably won't happen this year. So it's just something to keep in mind regarding timing, that these meetings don't come together very quickly typically. So with that, we're happy to answer any
Sonic boom.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. Take it easy.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you, City Manager. Questions? Do you have any questions?
I have
Okay.
a comment.
Councilmember
So,
Gama.
yeah, like it or not, we're bound by the Brown Act, and I think, again, like it or not, we have to follow the rules, and we probably don't like the fact that it's so hard to get these two bodies together. However, we have a public agency partnership like no other in the county. And I think we owe it to the citizens of Port Hueneme to have conversations that matter. And we're inhibited to having those conversations right now. Now we have two members that are supposed to go meet for the Community Benefit Fund. And, that went off the rails last time, in my opinion. But I can't talk to it. I can't talk to you about it because it's a Brown Act violation. I can't say to the two members that are going to go over there, hey, make sure you talk about this. It's a Brown Act violation. So, like it or not, I think we need to figure out a way to have conversations that matter, that don't put us in a position to violate the Brown Act. And it probably will be uncomfortable at first, but that's okay. We have to have a mechanism maybe to have 2 meetings a year. That's what I would hope would happen. But, to the community benefit, two member, that's for the community benefit fund. Okay, someone's shaking their head, but, that's an opinion. And I don't believe any one of us should be silenced. And if the 5 of us have an obligation to be a partner with the port, and we have to do it in a public manner. We have to have public conversations, and I think that's what this, to me, is all about.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. I thought there was kind of 2 issues in this staff report. One was to talk about this the strategic planning discussion, and somehow it's turned into a joint city port meeting. I believe that the original intent when I introduced the idea of a strategic planning meeting, it was to bring not just the port together, but the community to get together, a representative from our school districts, a representative from our Boys and Girls Club, the port, the Navy base, Hueneme Coalition, all the critical stakeholders in our community, and talk about something that's very specific. And at this point, I would say economic development might be the topic. So that was my vision for a strategic planning session. Now, I know that would take a lot of work. I don't think having to post the meetings should be such an obstacle. If we are talking about doing a meeting with the port, with both full bodies attending, it's not that big of a deal. We've done it before. I think we've done it almost twice before. We've done it twice, and it shouldn't be a barrier to us having that kind of meeting. However, if we do decide to do that, I think we have to be very specific on what it is we want from the port. What it is that we want to talk about? What are our questions? And we have yet to figure that out up here on the dais, which we can do very easily in a public discussion, is get down to the essence of what it is we want from the port. So before we even get into a joint meeting, I think we need to be able to determine that. Now, do we need a joint meeting to do that? Personally, I feel we don't. When we appointed the mayor and the mayor pro tem to represent the city council, they were appointed, they were entrusted, And I have full confidence in them that they can represent this council at a body given at the Port City meetings and take to those meetings our comments, whether it's the Community Benefit Fund or it's the settlement agreements or it's talking about other issues. There is nothing that says in the settlement agreements that we can't do that. In fact, there's precedent in earlier agenda items and in earlier minutes that other items indeed were discussed at the City Port meeting other than just the Community Benefit Fund.
It's the Brown Act that's the problem here.
But it's not a Brown Act if we're discussing it here in an open forum. So, yeah, it's not a Brown Act if we discuss it here in an open forum in public. That's where we can be transparent in the issues that we want to take to this joint port meeting. So I would like to be able to know that at the next Port City meeting that we're not going to run into a situation where we tie the hands of our representatives in discussing any issues related to city-port relationships. I expect the committee representatives to glean from our city council the discussion items, to get them narrowed down to a point where they can intelligently discuss them at the Port City meetings. I would like to see them meet with the city manager so the three of you can actually come up with your strategy about what messaging we want to take to that meeting. Go equipped with staff reports, go equipped with the settlement agreements, have staff put together a binder so you have those pieces of information at your fingertips. And then we should always have an agendized meeting before the City Port meeting. So those are kind of my recommendations so we don't run into what happened at the last meeting, and give you that authority and the tools that you need to fully have a productive discussion.
Mayor Pro Tem, and then we'll come back around.
Okay, so a couple things. I know we're bound by the agreement on that particular meeting, just reading the agreement. However, I will make a comment. Things that we need to kind of expand on is the DC trip. Like, what do we want to, what do we need to do so the port can help us lobby? Like, that needs to come from, we need direction so that we can take it with staff because they have a lobbyist in DC they pay for, and sounds like they would help us with that. So, again, I'm just thinking out loud. Freewheeling.
So let me just ask you a question. So what you're going through right now, you're talking about ideas for the conversation?
So when we do go to the port meeting, there should be some things that we can talk about, and it's things that this joint meeting does, which it pre-plans that DC trip.
Yeah.
Which is part of the CBF.
Right. So the only reason I ask that is because we're not at the point to talk about what those items are just yet. We're actually talking about if we should have it. So I think
that's what I'm saying.
Once it's decided if we
should, if anything, with keeping within the CBF, that DC trip is part of the CBF, and it's something that we should have control over.
Got it.
Once the council says, hey, we want you guys to lobby for these things, and then we take it with us. That's one. Grant writing is another CBF item, and it's just sitting there, idle, not doing nothing. We need direction. Let's move on that. And instead of having a joint meeting, why can't we do a joint town hall? Why can't we do that?
Hold on just a second.
That is a possibility. So I think that's one of the ideas with this is asking the council what structure you would want for that meeting. We proposed one, but it can be something else identified by the council.
Right. So let me just kind of summarize what you're communicating to us, is that those items on the CBF that they haven't been approved by the port, but we have agreed on them. If they were approved by the combined group, those are some topics that we should be freely able to talk about in.
Yes.
With preparation.
Yes.
Got it, got it. Let's go around. Sorry, Councilman Perez.
So, yeah, I agree with that. First of all, the grant writing is already there. It's already been approved. It's just waiting for our direction as to where we want to put it. And we already know, and because I've heard this before, the port already wants to do a DC trip. That's their plan all along. So we should probably get in mind as to what we want to do, what that looks like. We need to plan that. But the problem I have with the Port City meetings is they put out an agenda. There's always an agenda ahead of time. But they didn't stick to the agenda. They went off the agenda. And that's the problem with being able to prepare for a meeting when you go in to the agenda that you get from them as to what we're going to talk about, and you go there ready to talk about what's on the agenda, and then they throw all these other things that aren't on the agenda. That's the issue that I have. How do we get them back to talking about the agenda items and sticking to those? That way we can have functional discussions and be prepared for meetings ahead of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then it's back to the Brown Act thing. So it's very difficult unless we were to have an agenda item and we're going to talk about A, B, C, D as it relates to the port. And then when we decide, okay, these are our 5 items that we want to have a conversation with the port, then we have to get them to agree to that. And then we have a joint meeting, which is a big ask. But we're partners. We got to work on this partnership. And when we do things like, well, we'll have our attorney get back to you, that doesn't sound like a partnership to me. And so I feel like it's imperative to improve our relationship, our partnership, that we have a joint meeting so that we could talk and have an agenda. But yeah, I was, my name got thrown in. I didn't see my name on the agenda. I would have loved to come and, speak on my behalf. But, my name gets thrown out as others. But I think what we really need to work on our partnership. And this is the most unique public agency partnership in Ventura County, or if not the broader LA County. I can't think of any other, of course, Long Beach and LA Port, but we have to change the way we're doing things. And the Brown Act's the biggest issue, because if we're going to send 2 people over, oh wait, before you go over, I got one more thing I want. I don't feel like that it's your job to. I need to speak for myself, as each of us do, and when we have a joint meeting, we could do that, and then hopefully it could become a little more comfortable as time goes on. It's going to be uncomfortable at first, but I really think we should work towards that.
Okay, I'm going to say 2 things, and then I'm going to go to Councilmember Hernandez. So thank you for saying that, Councilmember Gama. That's one of the things I've communicated. Sometimes it's difficult to be on this dais and really understand where everybody's coming from. So for me and Mayor Pro Tem to go over and take your voices to a meeting, I don't think that that's something that you all should hold us responsible for. Because if there is a dialogue, right, the dialogue that I have is not going to come from you, it's going to come from me. And that may not be where you're coming from. So that's the difficulty that I have when the council would say, oh, okay, you're open to have these discussions. So yes, I think it's important for us to have some pre-meetings to discuss things. I think it's important for us as a committee, Port and City, to discuss and agree on the topics. I think it's important for us all to have information going into the meeting so that we can actually have an open dialogue. And so I think that's some areas where I think that we could do better in those meetings. So that's been communicated. We're going to continue to communicate that. It's important for us to be able to understand what we're going to be talking about so that we can have some informed decisions. And so we're going to continue to push that. The other thing, I just wanted to go back to the agenda item. I know the subject says strategic partnership, a joint meeting options with the Port of Hueneme, but this item says the recommendation is that the City Council consider options for City Council collaboration with strategic partners, including the Port Hueneme Harbor District. So this is really about strategic planning in a larger sense. It's not just about the port, but we're just talking about the port as one, because we had already had a conversation about this collective meeting, right? So this is just an opportunity to talk about that. So this item is about extended partnerships, but tonight we were just talking about the port. So it's not just specific to the port. So I just wanted to get that out. Did you have something?
Yeah, I did want to say that, you know, my perception of what the role of the committee representatives are, I mean, there's no mistake that the mayor and the mayor pro tem are assigned to represent this council on the Port City Committee. It's a very important relationship that you're given the responsibility to help build. And we don't have, while we might have individual thoughts and personal opinions, what you take to those meetings should be the consensus. We send you not with our personal ideas of how things should be run, but we come to a consensus on those items that we want you to represent on our behalf. So this idea that somebody's personal opinion isn't going to be counted or you don't get to speak for yourself, it is not relevant when you're representing the entire council. And so my expectation is that you have, because you're mayor and mayor pro tem, that you have the ability to synthesize what's been discussed at these meetings. These meetings are open meetings. They're public, on public record. There should be no restrictions on your ability to take what you've gleaned from these meetings and share at the Port City Committee meetings. So if you feel that, Mr. Gama, that your voice is not being heard, I would like to know what it is what you think you're going to want to say at a meeting that you can't say here in front of us.
I would like to know, how do you build consensus without having a conversation amongst the five of us?
That's
So
what we're doing now.
no, we're not. There was there was an agenda. They went off topic on the agenda, and so what you're saying is that these our two representatives are with a consensus of the five, and I'm telling you no,
Well,
because we never had a
We will,
conversation.
in the future, hopefully have that consensus if we do what has been suggested.
And then the other
We
thi-
stayed on, we
No, no.
stayed on message.
No, you did. And I said that last meeting. I would have walked out of the meeting, frankly, because.
Okay,
the-
so.
But here's my point. You can't have a consensus unless we have a conversation where all five of us vote
That's why we have this agenda item, and we're discussing right now.
the first time, okay?
We got to move forward, so
So how do we, if an item is going to be discussed, both sides have to agree to the agenda and the item, and then both sides have to have a conversation. So on our side, we send mayor and mayor pro tem. On their side, they send not the president and the vice president, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. The contract.
Doesn't matter?
Contract doesn't state they have to send the president. It just says 2 commissioners.
Okay, well, maybe these are some of the things that we could start discussing, like,
Yeah.
how could we have a joint meeting that's, relevant to the issues that by consensus we want to talk about?
yeah, we need to have a discussion here first on what those issues are.
So I think that is not the agenda item, so we won't be able to do that today. I think today what we're talking about is,
The structure.
yeah, was it specifically about having the joint meeting, city manager? That's not what is represented in the recommendation.
It's about taking the next step on the strategic partnership meeting that we've been discussing throughout the year. And then, as we said, we focused on the port due to the last council meeting, all the requests from the council to talk about the port.
Great.
As part of that sooner rather than later.
Okay, great. Council, I don't think we have to be in a room to make decisions today to move for this item, because it's going to take us time to even get the item, get feedback from our partners, the port, and so we will have time. We have a lot of avenues that we can use, considering calling a special meeting. So I don't think that we need to belabor this issue for having the conversations at a later date. So are there any other questions? Is there a motion and a second for the agenda item?
I'll move,
What are we moving to do?
that staff, that based on tonight's discussion, that staff go back and come up with an option. We have to vote on whether or not we want to do this joint meeting or.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
what's on the table right now.
Yeah,
So do we want the staff to go back and work toward establishing this
joint
joint meeting with both bodies to move forward? And then we can do the rest, having the discussions within ourselves at a later time.
That sounded like a motion.
She made a motion, yes.
Second?
You made the motion, is that correct?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not,
Okay, so.
I'm not really for
so-
doing this joint meeting,
So,
but
so hold on. So is there a motion? Do you rescind your?
I'm going to rescind it. Yeah,
Okay,
let
is-
somebody else.
Is there a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to have staff, city manager pursue a joint meeting.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please take a roll call, please.
Okay. Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
No.
Councilmember Perez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez,
No.
Mayor McQueen-Lejeune.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Hernandez and Mayor Pro Tem Lopez voting no.
Great. So that is number 18. We'll move to city manager comments and reports.
Okay. We have a couple of items we wanted to highlight quickly. We celebrated our first movie in the park for the year last week on Friday the 13th with Moana 2 at Wainimi Beach Park. We had a good turnout at the beach, and we wanted to remind people that the next one is actually just around the corner. July 5th, we'll be showing Top Gun at Wainimi Beach Park at 8:15. And just a reminder that it's free admission and free parking and free popcorn. So hoping to see people there. We also wanted to just highlight that a couple weeks back, our Port Hueneme Police Department led the Special Olympic Torch Run. It's kind of a cool experience this year. We went a different route than what we had done previously to go through all of our residential neighborhoods and residential streets and through several schools. So that was a highlight this year. So we wanted to thank everybody who participated, and also a thanks to the Oxnard PD traffic team, who also helped provide some traffic control as we went through the various streets, and our Port Hueneme Police Department as well. And then as we announced Wainimi Beach Fest earlier today, we wanted to remind everybody that we are getting ready for summer at Wainimi Beach with Beach Fest coming up less than a month away now. And then we also announced today that annual parking permits are now available for Wainimi Beach for next year, so people can come get their parking permits ahead of 4th of July weekend coming up. And then this event is going to occur on June 25th. It's a different one for us, so we're trying to get the word out. It's what we're calling our short-term rental community forum. If you recall, the council approved that we do a community survey and that we get those results, and then we have a workshop after that. So we're going to do that on Wednesday, June 25th at 5:30 p.m. And so we are hoping we're going to go through the survey results and try to get additional feedback from community members. And we're hoping for more input that will help us shape the recommendations that will come back to the city council. I think right now, timing-wise, we're thinking that that'll come back 2 meetings from now in August. And for our next meeting, which is July 21st, because we have a short summer break between now and that meeting, for July 21st, right now, what we have planned is we are planning to have a housing authority meeting. We have several presentations, the Wainimi Hero Award proclamation, the Parks and Rec Month proclamation and Mothers Against Drunk Driving award presentation. We do expect to have a retirement appreciation for a retiring employee at that meeting as well. And for public hearings, we have the continued Emerald Perspective hearing that we continued to that date. And then right now for business items, we have our annual comprehensive financial report, our definition of wheeled vehicles update from that discussion earlier this year. The smoking prohibition in multi-unit housing that was approved late last year, we have that ordinance ready for that meeting, and the nitrous oxide regulation ordinance. So we'll be bringing those items on July 21st. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll move to council member reports and comments. Council member Perez.
I just have one. I attended the groundbreaking of the Boys and Girls Club new construction about to start on the Port Hueneme, or the Premier Credit Union, Premier America Port Hueneme Club groundbreaking. So that was exciting, and can't wait to see what that club looks like.
All right, Councilmember Gama.
Yes, this weekend at Hueneme Beach Cleanup, I had the privilege to meet an American avocet. And it's a bird that I've never seen on Hueneme Beach before. And we discovered a nest as well with 3 eggs in it. And so I communicated to the Audubon Society, and it's just really neat. It's a beautiful bird. I don't know if you could see it. Yeah, and it had these peculiar behaviors that it was doing with its wings. I thought it was doing a dance, but Cynthia Hartley told me that it's cutting the glare with its wings as it's picking bugs out of the water. But anyways, we are so proud of the work that we've done over the last 8.5 years. Hueneme Beach it's amazingly clean. And I think we hear that from a lot of different people. And when we're out there walking and talking and not filling up our buckets, it's because we've been walking and talking a long time, and it's really paying off. And our coastal environment is beautiful. And spend more time at the beach. And I think making popcorn at the beach for movies is a really good idea, and we should keep doing that. With regards to the polluters pay, I guess I could bring this up later, but I'll be making a request for an agenda item. But what I think we need to be educated on the whole gamut. From our speakers here, I hear, the oil and gas companies, but if we got to drill down and understand, how is it going to benefit? I think we have 1 gas station in Hueneme. Is that true? Maybe 2. But anyways, so how are we going to understand the resolution? How do we work with our partners to benefit from it, and so forth? So, and the reason why I bring it up, and I don't want, at the risk of sounding negative, I'm going to go negative, but when we do the dredge, it's a great thing. However, the amount of emissions from the dredge, from what I'm told, is one of the biggest polluting events in our area. And so is this polluters pay? I mean, is it gonna hamper our dredging project? So anyways, I think we just need more information. So I hope that will be forthcoming before we get to the point of making a resolution. And I just want to say, in regards to Juneteenth, my parents moved to Paso Robles a really long time ago, and my first ventures up there, we used to go to a Baptist church, and it was we met a lady by the name of Juanita Booker. And Juanita Booker sang the national anthem for Ronald Reagan's first inauguration. And this lady just was so beautiful in being a woman of color in an area that isn't known for women of color. And I just feel like as a country, we've come a long way. And I'm really proud to be a member of this country and a member of what Juneteenth has become. I mean, I think it's awesome. And I think about Juanita Booker all the time because she had such a beautiful voice. And I couldn't help but think about her today. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hernandez?
I have no reports. I'm attending all my meetings. Got meetings scheduled tomorrow. Legislative committee meeting with SCAG tomorrow. So that's always interesting, especially in this time when things are changing quite a bit. But I will have some items for the agenda request, future agenda
Great,
items.
thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, so I did, last week I did take a phone call with CPA. I am an alternate, so I haven't got it to any meetings, I know, Laura, you've been on them, so I had personal questions regarding the solar program. And for those who don't know, CPA is taking over October 31st.
I think so.
Officially?
October. Yeah.
So again, when that transition happens, you know, I started doing my homework and trying to make sure that if the public comes and I have the answers. There is net metering for the solar roof people who have solar panels. Net metering 3.0. Very restrictive, but it's not CPA. It's SCE. Anyways, so when you're actually creating energy during the day, you're selling it at a reduced price rather than getting it at the same price when the sun goes down. And so they're incentivizing. What the rule is, they want you to buy a battery. That's what they're going. That's what they're trying to do. So I was just getting all the research, getting all the information, and I'm going to pass it to. I think I did pass it to you, James. All that information so that we're smarter with the CPA program. It's not CPA. It's the utilities companies that are passing these rules. And I did with Misty and Merritt attend the Boys and Girls Club groundbreaking Premier America $6 million project, and they're going to get it done in 6 months. It's mind blowing how fast they're going to do that. So. Looking forward to that, and that's all. That's all I got.
Great, thank you. A couple of things. So yes, I did go to the Boys and Girls Club ceremonial groundbreaking. It was really a wall breaking. It was really nice. Yes. So I don't know if the council members have seen the hard hat and the sledgehammer. It's in our office.
Oh.
Yeah. So we were able to break through this wall. It was really neat. So they let everybody have the hats and the sledgehammer. So it's in the office. So was very nice, yes, on the spot. Premier America's Foundation donated $1 million. That was wonderful to see that. The other thing is, so I've been participating in my meetings. I did attend the Coffee with the City, which went really well. And I think our public comments said an hour, but we were really there 2 hours. It was really nice. There was a lot of people out. It was really nice. Did want to just remind you all that I'm going on the SCE High Sierra workshop. I'm leaving on Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday. It's at Big Creek, and it's to tour the hydroelectric project in San Joaquin River. So I'm looking forward to that. I found out today that the executive director of VCTC, which I'm the vice chair, is also going. So he kind of connected with me today and said, see you soon. So anyway, going to do that. I was at the last meeting I was at the port. I ran into, I can't remember his name, the director of the EDC. Yes. He mentioned your name.
Yes. Bruce Stensley.
Is it Bruce Stensley? Yeah, I met him for the first time. And so we were talking, and he was kind of talking about that we have a seat on the EDC that's not filled right now. And I think it's on Thursdays. I don't know what Thursdays. I'm gonna look at my schedule and see if that's something maybe I could participate in, because it seems like it's pretty valuable. So we'll see. So I'm looking into that. And then the last thing is, yeah, I will be at Juneteenth. Matter of fact, I'll be vendoring, have a booth, and selling my jewelry. And so what generally happens is they announce the elected officials. So last year I was able to represent the city. I'm sure that'll happen again this year. So just want to let you all know that. And so other than that, just attending my meetings. Yeah, and getting ready. I just got an invite, and it's a couple of months away, but I just got an invite to go to the annual transportation conference that I went to last year. It's in November, and GCTD picks up the cost, so there's no cost involved with that or the thing that I'm doing in a couple of days. All right, and so that's all that I have. Any by the ways? No? No? Okay, so let's move on to the request for future agenda items. Councilmember Perez?
Well, I was going to do the agenda to get more information on the Superfund resolution, but he's going to, so I'll just let him do it.
Okay. Councilmember Gama?
Can we have a detailed presentation on the polluters pay? And then I guess we could also consider a resolution at that time. But I just want to avoid just doing a resolution, but have a full-on presentation. So if we could get that on the agenda, that would be great.
Is there a motion in a second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Anything else, Gama? Nope. Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes, I have a couple of requests. One is I would like to request a certificate of appreciation or a proclamation for Pastor Ken Walters, I believe. Yeah. He's with the Church of Port Hueneme on 5th Street, and he's hosts the Friday food share distribution, and he's been doing it for a few years. We're coming up on his anniversary, so I'd like to get, I don't know what would be better, a proclamation or a certificate signed by the council, the full council. I can get more details to Georgiana.
Yeah, if you send us the details, I think off the top of my head, usually proclamations for like proclaiming it, like his
Right,
day or something
right.
like that. So it sounds like maybe a certificate,
That would be
like of
nice.
appreciation.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. And then I would like to have an agenda item to discuss our economic development strategy and plans for a town hall or a meeting to include other stakeholders. My thoughts are, it would be nice if we could just do something during council, maybe do a SWOT analysis of, with our council and invite the audience to participate in it. But I'd just like to see us move in that area. So if we could have an item to discuss community, the economic development plans.
All right, is there a motion? Motion.
What's the motion?
The motion is to agendize a discussion on preparing an economic development stakeholders meeting.
I second.
Madam?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to have an agenda item, and I'm just not clear if this is a staff or this is a council. We need direction on what we need to move with the port for our DC trip. I want to, if the council wants staff to do this, or do we want to direct the staff? Okay, so my motion is a future agenda item to discuss our DC lobbying trip.
I'll second that.
Can I amend that so that you're including other items for discussion at the Port City meeting? Because there's other things too to discuss
Well,
besides the
This is strictly the DC trip. Is it like, can you elaborate?
Well, don't we have a city court meeting coming up? Don't we need to discuss what you guys will be taking, what messaging you'll be taking to that meeting?
We haven't even seen
Yeah.
the agenda.
Yeah.
It's strictly CBF right
Well,
now.
we don't have another
It's
council
not-
meeting
it's-
before
yeah,
then.
we gotta get rid of that notion that it's only CBF.
No, I know, but that's what's on the, that's what's, we haven't even discussed our results of the CBF.
Okay, so I think we're talking a little, let's get back to what.
Yeah,
the time
so
is.
my,
Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
so my motion was to have an agenda for our DC trip items, what we want to lobby for.
I'll second.
I already seconded.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, I have one more item. So I would like to have an agenda item for requesting a scholarship to Hueneme High School NJROTC, that when they have their end-of-year award ceremony, that we provide a $1,000 or $500 scholarship to an individual who portrays the most community service in the Hueneme community.
Question. Do we have CBF funds already allocated for scholarship money that we put on hold to hold over to other years?
Yeah, I think there's $4,000 available, and we haven't, took applications, but we haven't awarded any at this point, so that would come to council.
So is that up for new potential scholarshipees, or do they have to go to those 4 who already applied?
No, it's purely within the, well, I was gonna say within council's choice, but it's CBF, so it would be council and the port's choice.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, this would be for 2026.
Okay, so I'll second.
Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, if there are no other items, future agenda items, we're going to adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 21st at 6:30. The time is now 9:26.